For realsies?
For real?
Yeah,
for realsies. Wow, look at that.
You were real bad about that.
Look how I fucked that up. I've been podcasting for 2 years, and I've never gotten my intros down.
Never, ever.
Welcome to episode 2 of Organization 2. I'm Vanny.
And I am Raziel's Flame, and we got my friend over here as a guest.
Oh, I'm Scorpio North. Nice to be here. I feel very welcome.
Oh, listen, buddy. Well, don't worry. We kept the seat warm for you.
Yep.
It was me. I was
I like how
warming
you
the
started
seat.
that with like, this is my friend. It's like, oh.
You know what? Me and Vanny are now best friends.
Listen, this is your first time really meeting Vanny, and Vanny is your first time meeting Scorpio, and I hope by the end of it, you two will be super close friends.
very good at becoming friends with people I just met.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
They start realizing. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Way to kick me out of my spot.
Like, and then they start realizing, like, the third or fourth time we start hanging out, it's like, oh, this person's the worst.
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right. So today on the docket, we're going to be talking about, we kind of discussed this a bit the other night, and we had a couple of ideas kind of flowing through our heads. And I think we settled on talking about movie adaptations of video games, and then vice versa as well, just to kind of pad out the talking points on that end, because there are also quite a few movies that have been made into games, and quite a few not so great ones.
Mostly not so great ones.
Yeah, it's mostly not so great.
It's kind of a treasure trove at this point.
In all honesty, the ones that had good adaptations really are just nostalgia for me. Like, that's it. Like, objectively, I can't really call them amazing. There's been a couple that haven't been terrible.
Yeah.
Some.
There's a couple I dare say I liked.
Yeah.
One I say I really enjoyed, like shockingly so, and we'll kind of get to that one.
Yeah. Honestly, but I think let's start out with one that hasn't been released yet, because I know A, he really wants to talk about it, and B, it's one of those ones where we don't necessarily have anything but speculation to go off of, and then the rest of the podcast we can kind of talk about ones that have already come out where we can really just kind of dive into it.
Kind of just rag on them the whole
Yeah, because I feel like if we start out with those, we'll end up just spending forever like. Yeah.
We can really dig our teeth into those. This one,
exactly.
It's new, it's fresh. We know very little about it, and everything I know about it scares me.
All right, so you want
at the edge of my seat here.
Yeah. Would you like to? Would you like to?
It's the Borderlands movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I have thoughts on that one.
I'm a huge Borderlands fan. I have been since the game's releases. Borderlands 2 being like one of my favorite games, and looter shooters becoming my favorite genres because of it. So just to see that they were making a movie, I was like, all right, cool. Like, there have been movies that have been coming out recently that have been pretty good.
Yeah. That
they even like redeemed themselves, such as Sonic, but we'll touch on that later. This Borderlands 2, or like the Borderlands movie that's coming out, I was very excited for. And then the news hit. Kevin Hart was playing Roland, and immediately I knew we were on thin fucking ice.
Literally. Yeah. Okay. So all right. I like Kevin Hart. I think he's funny.
That's not a dig at Kevin Hart. I've watched all of his comedy specials. I loved him in Jumanji.
Yeah. He is not Roland.
He's not Roland.
He's not Roland.
No.
There's no way. Okay. First off, it's more or less the mannerisms, the voice. I don't see it. There's no way they can craft him into the Roland that he even should be remotely close to being. Like, I don't expect an adaptation to hit the nail right on the head. Period. Because you have to kind of make. You generally have to make some exceptions somewhere.
Right.
They're not always going to look exactly the same. They're not always going to sound exactly the same. They may not even be able to play the exact personality. But if you can hit at least 2 out of those 3 and get kind of close with them, I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
I can do that. Yeah. I can do that. But like the fact of the matter is he's not going to sound like Roland. He's not going to. He's not going to look like Roland or act like him.
Look like him.
I mean, okay. Here's the thing though. With actors, you can't really ever know.
That's true.
He might pull off it.
Michael Keaton was a surprise Batman.
Yeah, agreed.
At that point.
Robert Downey Jr. is tiny. He's so much smaller than the rest of the Avengers, but they like the angles they worked at, and it made him look like he was just as big as whoever played Steve Rogers, Chris Evans.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, honestly, there were a lot of like the Marvel films where I saw people getting cast, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this until they actually did. Like Robert Downey Jr. was one where I was like, he's a great actor, I love him, but I didn't know I'd love him that much as Iron Man.
Yes, I can't see anyone else playing Iron Man. So it's gonna be interesting.
Right. So honestly, that one for me, I could see him maybe hitting the personality if he just, because he does fairly well as an actor.
Yes.
My issue is that he's going the voice and the way he carries himself might detract fully from Roland as like a live action character, you know what I mean? It's not going to be remotely close to the same, and that's where there's going to be a huge disconnect where maybe individuals who don't know Borderlands or don't have any experience with it may enjoy it, but those of us who really like Borderlands and have experienced it quite a bit, and especially have an attachment to characters like Roland, are going to have a hard time really diving into the role, you know what I mean?
And that's usually where I think that a lot of these video game adaptations, and we eventually will talk about the Mortal Kombat film as well too, because I have a lot of thoughts on that film as well.
Oh yeah.
But I will hope for the best for it too. Again, I kind of agree with Scorpio. Like I do think he is funny. I've liked his stand-up specials. I thought he was actually pretty solid in Jumanji, but one of the things is like when you bring on somebody like Kevin Hart, the one thing I have not seen him do yet, and again we may get like a Michael Keaton situation where he's gonna be surprising, is play serious.
Yes.
And Roland is the serious character out of all the characters. He's probably one of the more generic in the series comparatively to the others, but he still has like a gravitas for him too. Like he is the straight man who just sort of carries like the severity of what's kind of happening too. And
he's the leader.
Kevin Hart, I've never seen him do that.
And for the audience, if you've never played Borderlands, first you should. It's amazing. Roland is supposed to be a stoic, 6 foot tall, muscular soldier whose sense of humor is more of a dry type.
Idris Elba.
Yes. I made a list.
Literally, this is something we were talking about.
And at the top of my list for the people to play Roland, I said Idris Elba. I thought he would be perfect.
Fucking everything. I think that dude is such a great actor. Just not comedies, because he's fucking terrible at SNL. But
I think he would have been an amazing choice on that. And what else was there? Isn't Jack Black playing
Jack Black is playing Claptrap, so I'm gonna go see the movie no matter what.
Here's the thing. I love Jack Black, love his stuff, but I want to hear Claptrap's voice.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's probably the one thing that makes me really excited to go see the film, because if they're gonna detract from like having something like that, I'd rather it be something like Jack Black playing the role of Claptrap.
Who's gonna have the energy, and who is a gamer too, which I can appreciate.
Yes.
I was very shocked when Cate Blanchett.
Cate Blanchett was another one, yes.
Yep. That was like, wow, that is a pedigree.
She's, a very major name, but again, not the type of person I would see playing Lilith.
Yeah.
They're obviously trying to fill seats. They're filling seats by putting in big names.
They wanted big names, and that's I understand that. I understand the like you're trying not to just get the fans of Borderlands, you're trying to get movie fans and all this other stuff.
Honestly, I feel like they should have learned by now that doesn't usually work.
Yes.
It never really works. You can take as many big names as you want to, stick them into a film, and yes, they're objectively amazing actors. But you're pulling from a medium that has a very dedicated fan base, and when we get pulled away from that medium in some way, shape, or form, whether it's from the way the actors look, the way the actors act, or when they completely change certain aspects of the game, of the story in and of itself, that's the one that bugs me the most.
Which is where Borderlands 1, the topic, I don't know what the movie is about. I have my own speculations. I'm not positive, but Borderlands 1 didn't really have a thick story. There was a lot you could just interpret, and there was a lot to interpret in the game. A lot of it was written in the missions, and you had to read out through it, and not a ton of people did that.
It was more lore than it was like a straight out story.
So I thought, like, all right, retelling Borderlands 1, giving it a story, making it like more understandable, that would be perfect. But then the strangest thing happened. They announced who was playing Krieg. Who is from Borderlands 2. He was a DLC character. Also, what's his face? The head of Gearbox. It's like one of his favorite characters.
Oh dear lord. I think I know who you're talking about, but the like I'm not as big of a Borderlands person as you are, so it's like the name's escaping me.
I can't remember either. It's I'll look it up.
Okay. All right. On the topic of movies that detracted very heavily from the original story, right? And this might derail a little bit from Borderlands, but we'll revisit your topic in a second. my pick for the night, the Doom movie. You remember when that released? And when
I've seen that movie multiple times. Like I used to defend Doom.
Okay,
like,
all right.
For that one part.
I enjoyed it for what they were trying to do with it, but it was not Doom. When they completely changed the whole, they're no longer demons, they're no longer devils, they're not from hell. They're these weird like individuals that had extra chromosomes, and so they were mutations. And I'm like, all right, you're losing me. We're not doing anything involving like the whole. The whole like hell story. We've completely detracted from the whole Doom guy thing, and I guess they kind of do a Doom guy thing at the end where the main character injects himself with the chromosomes, and he ends up becoming the good guy who just goes around literally exploding everything.
Such a good person.
Because he's such a good person. That was another thing. That was another thing that got me. Like, if you're not a good person, this will turn you into a demon. If you are a good person, you'll become a super soldier. And I'm like,
that doesn't doesn't
make sense.
Yeah. First off, like, if you put the word soldier in there, that already means you've probably done something wrong with your life.
Exactly. Like it did so many things. As if it didn't have the Doom IP, it would have been a somewhat decent sci-fi film. Somewhat decent, like B-level sci-fi movie.
Like Sci-Fi Channel, like Saturday, you're kind of high, and like I don't know what else to do. Fuck it.
Exactly. Like if I saw that on the Sci-Fi Channel, I wouldn't be upset, right? But it has the legacy of Doom behind it. You know what I mean? It has the legacy of Doom riding behind it. It's got all this amazingly beautiful like story and all these different atmospheres that they could go to, which they actually capitalized in on the second Doom movie, which came out. I don't understand how it got a second one. Right? I forget what oh my god, it was so like euphoric seeing the second one and being like, they are at least getting some things right. This actually makes more sense in relation to the Doom like universe, right? So I understood that actually worked. But the whole like, we got The Rock in the movie, he's gonna be a bad guy, but we got him in the movie, and the first person shooter whole run in that movie hurt me on so many levels because I wanted to love it.
I defended it. Like at least they tried. And they got the chamber from Doom 3. It's like, all right.
I wanted to love it, but it was so cheesy watching it go from like what felt like what was early 2000 CGI first person run and gun, but not done as well as I feel like a AAA movie should have done it. I was like, oh man, like don't get me wrong, it was interesting. I liked the idea. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then I went back and I rewatched it and I was like, oh my god, I was so in the moment. I was just like, I was so in the moment. It felt so like fluid and good, but then you go back and you watch it and you realize you're just like, it doesn't look as good as I thought it did. It's a lot of high action. That's what it is. You get lost in the action. It's the adrenaline pumping through your body, and you're just like, oh my god, this is cool because it's first person. It looks like the Doom game. You're like, this is great. Then you get to the end of it, and you're like, what did I just watch?
93 seconds of decent content in an otherwise film where nothing happens. They just shoot at empty hallways and just dark screens and I did like the scene where the guy who was super religious turned into a demon and realized it and was like, I'm just gonna off myself right here right now. Like it was such a pull away from the moment, and it felt like one of the more genuine moments in the movie. And so I do have moments that I enjoy. Like I said, it's honestly a B-grade sci-fi film if you look past the whole Doom aspect of it.
Yes.
And
a lot of these movies that we'll be talking about, a lot of them suffer from that. Like, hey, if you didn't slap this title of like lore onto it, if you didn't say, hey, this is, I don't know, a Borderlands movie, if this wasn't a Doom movie, if this wasn't like X movie, it would have been a really good movie. It would have been like, or at least maybe B tier, but like solid B tier.
Yeah, or at least obscure enough where it's like it's not going to offend too. And I think that's been the biggest thing is like they detract so far sometimes for the material, or they don't understand really what the appeal was for it, or they take safer bets for something, or they just don't understand the point of it, that they just kind of fuck it up. Like for me, the one where it just completely missed the mark, like 100%. Like there's a lot of them that do that, but the one that always stuck out the most for me was the first one I ever saw, which I think is the first video game adaptation, the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Super Mario Brothers movie.
I was in the theater with my mom, And she took me to see this because I was so just excited, like they're turning into this, and Bob Hoskins does look like Mario. John Leguizamo, I was like, who? I don't know who this is.
I think they definitely.
And then he's in everything, right? Like John Leguizamo. After that, was like
at the time, yeah.
Okay, literally, I think the main characters, when you got Mario and Luigi, I think they did a good job picking people that looked like them, at least. Like they did as close as you'll probably get for that time frame without any real CGI work to work with, and like just a live action adaptation.
Yeah.
That's all they got.
That's all, because then they turned it into just the biggest what the fuck I've ever seen.
The Goombas.
They fucking Goombas. They were supposed to be like, oh, these little mushroom guys, and they turned them into giant, like body horror lizard monster things with like tiny heads.
Teeny tiny heads.
And they turned Toad into a Goomba. They still gave a bullshit harmonica.
Oh my god.
It was the first time, like, because I think when we're all kids, everything of the thing that you love, regardless, is gospel amazing. Like,
Yeah,
you just
right.
love
Oh,
it to death.
absolutely.
It's great, it's fantastic. And I remember walking out of the theater, and that was the first time where I realized, like, maybe some movies suck.
Some
And
movies,
it
yeah.
was Super Mario Brothers, because it just.
you telling me
it wasn't
movies
the
can't
Mushroom
be
Kingdom.
good?
We didn't get.
Are you telling me
Bowser was
movies
awful.
movies can be bad? Movies can be bad? What?
Yeah, that was the glass shattering for me. Was Super Mario Brothers was
my
like
God.
really, like seeing like Bowser and not seeing a giant lizard king. You're seeing Dennis Hopper in a three-piece suit.
Oh man.
Talk about evolution, and that it was an alternate dimension was created because of the when the meteorite hit Earth, and like Daisy was like transported over here and like lived with the nuns for a while. So he was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
They're bringing in a lot that should not be there.
Yeah, and they turned like one of the weirder ones too was from Mario Brothers 3 that it was the giant red fish, Big Bertha I think is what they call it. They turned her into like a dominatrix club owner who had the meteorite wrapped around her bosoms. It was
Oh my god.
I was like around her tickle bitties. It's like what the like.
It's like, okay, if you're not gonna follow the story, at least go big, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they went really.
They swung
really
wide.
just-
They swung wide.
So, like, so I just remember walking out of that one just so disappointed, and the fact that you don't even see Mario and Luigi in their iconic red and green outfits, technically ever, because they don't get it right.
Yeah.
But when they do, or when they are putting on their suits, it's like the movie's already almost over by that point, and they even had to like explain like how they could jump. Like instead of it just being like they could just jump really high and just fuck it, let's run with it. They gave them like magic boots. Or those electronic steampunk boots.
To be fair, they probably were so sold on it being a hit, they probably didn't don the suits until the end because they assumed they were probably going to get a sequel.
Well, it did lead to a
Oh, that's
sequel.
right. It did lead to a sequel. I forgot.
Yeah, we got the teaser. That just never happened because that movie was a disaster. It's a cult classic now, but
God.
it's one of those movies where the story behind the creation of the film is way more interesting than the film itself, because the director team was absolutely just despised by everybody. There's rewrites constantly going through the set. Dennis Hopper like had a giant shit fit while making it and just went on this like apparently 2-hour rant about how much he's hating this experience. Like Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo were drunk the entire time. To the point that like Bob Hoskins broke his arm during filming, and they just had to like cover up his cast with like red paint.
Oh God.
Like it was a disaster.
That's, oh man, I'm trying to think, like, did we have anything during our generation that was like anywhere near that as far as video game movies were concerned?
That were just colossal. Well,
Failures, because they just hit the mark on so many levels. Like, I don't think nothing on a video game aspect hits that one for me, but you damn well sure that either DBZ Evolution or the Avatar movie.
That one,
oh yeah, well the
Avatar:
Avatar,
The Last
is
Airbender.
is a fucking pitch.
That
they
one-
they just went off the handle.
They
off the cuff
whiffed
with
on that one, but like at least the Avatar: The
Yeah.
Last Airbender kept some of the story in it. Dragon Ball Z Evolution went the Super Mario route and just completely yeeted everything.
yeah, they just made embarrassed with themselves. Like just even just the like the whitewashing of Goku was just
Oh my God. Okay.
genuinely inexcusable.
The whitewashing of Goku, the oh my God, when I saw Master Roshi, I think I threw a fit. Like I couldn't do it anymore. I turned the TV off when that happened and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do it. Like it doesn't work. There's no turtle shell. He looks like your everyday average dude. He doesn't even look that old. And I'm just going like, what is wrong with this? Why? Who looked at this, looked at the source material and green lighted this?
Hope.
Well, they planned 8 movies initially too. Like, I remember I was initially, the only reason I was wanting to watch Dragon Ball Evolution was because James Marsters was in it, and I was a huge Buffy fan at the time. And it's Spike. Let's see him actually. Maybe this will be his big takeout point. And fucking nope.
No.
And I mean, also like Key Blasts were air farts that they were just shooting back and forth at each other.
Okay,
That's what
fair.
it was like. That was the first anime I've ever watched where key blasts were a very common thing to see, and they fucked that up because it's easier just to see like air with some squiggly
Air with
lines
this,
across the
oh my
screen.
god, you are right on so many levels on that end. I'm trying to think
so,
like
my
It's
entire
not-
generation was full of those shit like this though.
It's not like an actual one, but like technically Pixel with Adam Sandler. But like,
okay. I mean, I guess because it's got video game characters in it.
like the whole premise, and then it was just like, this is really fucking dumb.
But that falls into the idea of bad book to movie adaptations because Pixels was a book originally and a
Was it
really
really?
well and it was a critically acclaimed best-selling novel. People loved it and they screwed that one up, which okay, I can somewhat get maybe okay, here's my hot topic on books to movies, right? I can understand why people dislike them because generally when you read a book, you envision characters a specific way.
Right.
You envision how they are in your head, and then 9 times out of 10 when they do a movie, they will never hit the nail on the head. They either won't look the same, they won't act the same, they won't sound the same, and that's really hard to do because you're going from a medium that has absolutely nothing to go for outside of the imagination of the person reading it. So that is hard. I can give book movies some credit on that end for at least trying. I understand why they fail. I also understand when they succeed, why they succeed.
Yeah.
But video game movies are different because you have a visualization.
Right.
You can hear it,
And
it's
audio,
auditory.
what they sound like sometimes.
Yep, you've got audio, you've got the visual aspect, you have the story there. It's really not that difficult to kind of go from one to the other, and there are ways to fix it. The Sonic movie,
there we go. Yeah, the Sonic movie.
they messed up. They messed up with that model. When people threw a fit, they fixed it. And honestly, what we got, not terrible. Like, don't get me wrong. It's
terrible,
still it's still a video game movie.
I think it's
but
good.
I would put it
I would
towards,
say it's definitely.
I would put it towards the top of the list of movies that
It
were
absolutely is, yeah.
that were once video games.
I definitely think
We have
it's,
to do one of those tier
it's
rankings of
definitely
video
up
game
there.
movies.
We do. We should do that. Like, put that out later at the end. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, that one I'll put towards the top because I feel like they did a decent job.
Agreed.
Even though Eggman looks nothing like Eggman, I think they did a great job casting
Initially.
Jim Carrey. True.
Right, it was a origin story. He got there at the end,
Yes.
and the outfit and everything was pretty spot on.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
No, I agree with that.
like the body type, no, but like Jim Carrey just playing him.
Oh, he did it.
very good job.
Amazing
Nailed it,
job.
yeah.
He nailed the eccentric scientist super well. Like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, it wasn't going to be like the Eggman from the video games, but I think his rendition was spot on. Solid.
Yeah.
Like I said, if
and
you're
now, like, I'm curious to see him in because he is signed up for part 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I would
we're
hope
gonna
so.
see that. We're gonna see Tails. We're gonna see Knuckles apparently now as well.
Yep.
So
I
do respect the film
yeah.
enough.
It definitely does a good job, and if we're gonna say that there are good video game movies out there, that would probably be up in the list of good ones.
Right.
I would put it, honestly, I would dare say put it in the top 3.
I would put
probably.
definitely. I mean, like, I'm not gonna count. If we're gonna talk about these things, I'm gonna kind of try and limit it to more non-animated movies,
All right.
mainly because then we get into the topic of things like Pokemon, the Ratchet and Clank movie, things like that. Which the Ratchet
I
and
will
Clank
say
movie,
though,
Oh yeah.
Detective Pikachu was a phenomenal one.
Yeah, that is
Way better
actually,
than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah,
way
I
better.
would put that at the top for a
Yes.
video game film. That is probably, even though I'm not a Pokemon fan in general for it,
Right.
It actually, like, I've walked away from the film going like, I need to go buy a fucking Pokemon game.
Yeah,
holy
like,
shit,
I-
these games are
although-
like.
I have never played Detective Pikachu, but now I want to go back and play Detective Pikachu.
Although,
Yeah.
can I say how jarring it was when Ryan Reynolds actually came back and was legitimately the father, and he's just like, I thought it was gonna be like another, like they were either gonna find the dad or he was gonna pop up and they were gonna change the voice and his dad was gonna look different, but legitimately Ryan Reynolds walking out and be like,
just
I'm your
Ryan
dad.
Reynolds.
I was not ready for it. I was like, oh, that's Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why I wasn't ready for it. I was just like, it was so jarring.
Let me see. Just because it does kind of fit into a point before, like, because there are definitely some bad animated video game movies, and there are
There's an extra
definitely
copy of this. I almost could see Aki Ross on there. Oh no, Cloud.
Okay, so here's the thing. I love Advent Children. I think it's great.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a fun movie. But Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
Yeah,
The Spirits
It's
Within
awful.
was horrifying.
Yeah, I walked out of the theater for that one too, on the verge of tears at that point, because I had been playing Final Fantasy for years at that point. I was very touched because I got to grow up playing 4 and 6. So, and I think by that point 7 was out too. So loving this stuff, and then seeing it like something that I identified so personally with on the big screen, like where other people can experience it, and walk away going like, "What the fuck was?" They didn't even spell Sid right. It was SID versus the CID. It's like,
SID,
fuck
yep.
you absolute assholes.
Literally,
Brought to you by Pepsi.
That game just, in all regards, and that movie in all regards just hit them missed the mark on so many levels. Like the story didn't resemble anything like a Final Fantasy story. It's just honestly was rough. The 3D CGI was.
Some of it still holds up. I do think some of it does well. I think the backgrounds, environments and stuff, I think
it does, but the characters fall into that uncanny valley, soulless kind of feel, and it really is just not good.
Ben Affleck,
dangerous.
Ben Affleck being voiced by Alec Baldwin was hilarious. Yeah. Oh my god! Yeah. All right, I'm trying to think. Like, really, that movie was probably the pinnacle of. What am I watching for me? Like, I went into it fully expecting something involving Final Fantasy. You have the name, you're putting it in there, you know exactly what crowd you're going for. And there was just nothing. I got to the end and was like, did I even just watch a Final Fantasy film?
No, because there wasn't one goddamn chocobo.
Like, when the anime was more enjoyable than it, and the anime was also a little rough on that one, let me tell you.
The sequel to 5.
Oh my god, that whole, like, you know, we gotta show up at midnight at this train station, and there'll be this weird train that'll cart us off to Magic Land, and I was like, and then I was like, when does this become Final Fantasy? And then they're like, chocobos, and I was like, okay, I guess if we're gonna force it to be Final Fantasy, we'll make that happen. Cool.
It was like, I've actually gone back now, and I've seen The Spirits Within in the last couple of months. Advent Children I've seen like countless times before too. I agree. I do, as a film, it has a lot of problems. As a fan service film,
100% there. A+ there.
Is that.
I love it. People have torn it apart, but I love Advent Children.
They're not wrong. Like, there's heavy flaws with this film, but I don't really care. I did actually, even like within the last 2 weeks, watch Kingsglaive.
Kingsglaive.
Okay. That is not as terrible as I remember it being.
Kingsglaive is actually pretty solid, and Kingsglaive also looks spectacular.
Amazing.
Like, that was one where I was watching it. My dad comes downstairs and he was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "That's just a Final Fantasy movie," and he just stops and he goes like, "Wait, those aren't people?" And I was like, "No. It's just animated." And then actually, as I realized that, watching it, I realized there are moments where you just kind of forget it's an animated film. Until you fight the giant flying squid in the sky on an airship, you're just kind of like,
Ultros shows up, which for me was like, I forgot Ultros was in this film. I was like, yes, because that's also my server too in 14. But yeah, it's just the level of spectacle for it too. Like, the plot is still like, you do need to really pay attention. This is not something you can just kind of dick around on your phone with and just kind of have the background and be able to figure it out. Like, if you miss even like a couple of conversations, you're lost completely in it.
Yeah.
But visually, like, way better than Advent Children.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's
and it has
expected.
It just I just wish it led into one of my least favorite Final Fantasies, which is me. But still,
it led into what should have been probably one of our favorite Final Fantasies, but
should have been,
due to development hell, them not finishing the game, them releasing DLC after DLC after DLC after DLC, it just really panned out into one that was just a disjointed mess of a game. And biggest thing for me is the fact that most Final Fantasies, there are different areas in the game that look different and feel different and have like a different beauty in and of itself, whereas you get into Final Fantasy 15 and you see it and you're just kind of like, it's beautiful, and then you start to realize it all kind of looks the same and blends together.
Everything looks the same. Yeah, it's like all one big beautiful field. Yeah,
look at Final Fantasy 14 to be, for, like, you know, as an example. When you go to each different like city-state area, they look vastly different. Beautiful in their own way. Ul'dah is not my thing, but I could see where people would like Ul'dah.
It's an aesthetic. It's very much of that like nomadic kind of like, hey, this is a rocky plateau / like desert biome. And like, I get it.
It's different. It works. It's not the most pretty thing, but it is definitely like, it works for people. And there are definitely individuals I know who love who love that whole like area. Ul'dah is in and of itself has its own thing. It's not for everybody, but it does. You haven't gotten a Shadowbringers yet.
No,
but
I haven't.
Shadowbringers is another one that has amazing atmosphere, beautiful areas. Stormblood. Stormblood has
very
some,
beautiful.
Oh my god, a beautiful, beautiful area. 15 does not.
What is
Heaven's Word. Heaven's Word was Ishgard was beautiful.
Ishgard was very beautiful. It was a lot of snow, and then it just opened up into these like floating islands in the sky.
Floating.
It was like,
oh my god.
It went from
clouds,
like, all right, this is like okay, like it's beautiful, it's snowy, but it's the same thing. What is this? Hang on.
Sea of Clouds. You're looking at not even just the Sea of Clouds, but you also have Mogholm, which is very different looking. Azaz Law, which hits the button for people that are into sci-fi. Not my thing. I felt it was very jarring going from like fantasy-esque throughout the entire series and then hitting like full-blown floating airship sci-fi area. Like, don't get me wrong, you have the Empire and everything that kind of like breaks it up a bit, but it just was very jarring for me. It very like instantaneously like, where the hell am I? What's going on? But
and I think it was very jarring because everybody else was just like okay with it. They were like, all right, well, we're on this island now. This is a ancient civilization. Blah blah blah. Let's go about our day doing what we got to do.
Totally normal. Totally normal.
That's how that felt. But like 15 lacked that. 15 also, like I said, it lacks like the fact that the story is so disjointed. And if you really want to fully appreciate and understand 15, you got to watch the anime. You gotta watch the Kingsglaive the movie. You gotta read. I'm pretty sure they have. Don't they have like manga out for it? I'm pretty sure they do.
If there is, I don't think it may have came out afterwards. Then
I'm not certain. That might be the case. So. All I know is that they have tons of different mediums you have to dive into in order to fully understand and really adjust to the story. And it just falls flat on that end because I don't like to have to go to a different medium to understand things. Good example, Destiny 1. I love Destiny 1.
Very good game.
Not a fan of the card system where you get all your lore and everything.
I don't
from
know
a
a single person who was.
No, it was that one was rough. I shouldn't have to detach myself from a game to learn about the game. Like that's my personal opinion on that end. But anyways, I could talk about that for ages. We'll pull back into the topic of movies and whatnot, unless you want to say something.
No, I just think that at least in terms of the adaptations in general for it, like we only have just now gotten to the point of where I think some people are starting to take it seriously, and I think it's still, even then, I still think a big rock. So for every Detective Pikachu we have, or Sonic the Hedgehog, which good movie, but is it Sonic the Hedgehog all the way? No, they went cheap with the Ohio stuff. You still get, like, I grew up with the genuine awfulness of Mario Brothers Double Dragon, which like basically just like two dudes trying to save a girl from some gangsters into whatever the fuck that was. Like Los Angeles and fucking the T2 becoming.
But we've gotten good adaptations of simple premises. Like, good example, John Wick, which is they killed my dog, I'm gonna murder them. Yeah, literally did it super well on that end. You know.
Yeah, but I think they did it because of what they focused on. They didn't focus on the story there. It was very much, hey, action. All the story is in the very first 1 second. It's like, you killed my dog. Continue.
Double Dragon would have probably been a lot better had they had focused on that kind of an algorithm.
Exactly.
You know,
but instead they still had the post-apocalyptic stuff. They had Abobo being a genetic freak, and they had all this. It was so bizarre. Then the Uwe Boll films too.
Uwe Boll. Oh my God, the bane of video game movies.
The bane of video game movies is like so bad they're kind of good, and then become bad again.
House of the Dead. House of the Dead 2, because it did get a second one. Did it get a third one? I think it got a third one. I know there's at least two. There's at least two, because the second one, I have the second one up in my room, because that's a guilty pleasure of mine, because it's a terrible movie, but I love watching it. Let me think. There's that.
Blood Rain, which
Blood Rain.
Like,
oh my God!
The fuck did you get Ben Kingsley to do
Blood Rain? Okay, Blood Rain is a hot topic for me because I love my my vampire flicks, and I love Blood Rain. But I that was the last straw for me, because by the time we got to Alone in the Dark, I had no faith in it. But Alone in the Dark was literally not only was I now destitute and angry at life, they were kicking me while I was down.
Yeah. You took, and apparently the initial idea for it, like a buddy of mine got me the DVD for Christmas. I watched the behind the scenes. The initial script was to play out much more like a psychological horror film where you never really see the monsters for you. It was all a lot of like hints, very Alien-esque in terms of just the mood, the atmosphere, the environment told the story and elicited the fear. And then Uwe Boll came in and said like, no, fuck this, I need monsters. And they're like, what? That's not the point of the games. Like, I know the point of the games is to scare people. It's like, yeah, but it's how, like, that is, we're gonna do monsters. And they're like, it's your dime, dude, whatever.
Like, I don't know.
the one of the best things was like when they were trying to explain the action scenes when you see like Christian Slater and Tara Reid and Stephen Dorff shooting. Like they basically had to like cut them out of every frame so they could do like all the rotation, put them on the black backgrounds for too. So it was like, this is the dumbest fucking thing we've ever done, but that's what he wanted. And
it's like literally the issue with Uwe Boll is more or less the fact that he doesn't care. He doesn't care, and it's very clear he doesn't care. And no matter how many times his films flop, which they don't really even flop, he makes his money on them. It's the only reason he continues to churn them out. And
the tax loopholes in Germany.
Exactly. He makes his money back on them, but he doesn't care about the source material, period. And it stresses me out beyond belief, because whenever I see that name pop up, I know it's going to be a bad film, even if it's a great like game series. I know for a fact that he's going to trash on it, and then the worst part about it is it's going to kill any chance of a real adaptation from a decent director, right? Because then there's going to be all these directors out here who see what happened and they're going to be like, not touching it. Exactly. It failed already. It's a failed algorithm. And it goes, no, it could be a good one.
I don't want to touch that until X amount of time has passed. Right. We've seen movies that failed, they flopped, that were video game adaptations.
There you go.
Oh.
You're getting there.
Video game adaptations.
He's gonna get there, don't worry.
No, I'm never gonna get there. This is gonna be the next 30 minutes of the podcast, is me trying to say adaptation. There have been video game adaptations that went to movies that flopped, and we see making a resurgence now. Mortal Kombat is one of them. And
Mortal Kombat. I mean, to be fair, the original Mortal Kombat films were cheesy. They weren't amazing, but they weren't. I enjoyed them to a point.
The original had, like, I will give credit to the original for at least telling the story at the time correctly. Yes. It is about the tournaments. It is about following the rules. Even Annihilation did acknowledge that Shao Kahn was breaking the rules of the tournaments, and the Elder Gods got royally pissed. Right. Execution was pretty poor. Yes. But at least the first one, they also they had at least enough respect of the characters at the time to at least show you some stuff. So you got to see Get Over Here, you got to see the freeze blast.
Yep.
The acting for some of the characters, like Talisa Soto as Princess Katana, was awful.
Awful is definitely a word for it.
Was pretty rough too. But they also made an animatronic Goro.
Yeah,
that worked pretty well.
You also got to realize it's like cheesy, like 90s,
right? And for
the time frame,
it worked. It totally worked. And they actually gave Liu Kang a good story too. Like,
yes,
somebody who's just like he doesn't want to be considered the chosen one. That he's scared of his destiny.
Right.
And then there's Christopher Lambert playing Elder God Raiden.
Yep.
But having fun with it though.
Yeah, I give them credit for what they did, and it's understandable why Mortal Kombat got on them. But like, let me tell you, let me pose this to you.
All right.
Say tomorrow we find out there's a big release, like that they're talking about a year from now, they're gonna release a new Mario film, live action. You're telling me people would not draw parallels between the original and this one?
I never said they. I never said they wouldn't. I don't think they're not doing that with the Mortal Kombat today.
Right. I think there's certain movies that will leave a stigma that will not wash away.
It won't wash away, but I definitely think it won't be necessarily.
It won't be a roadblock forever.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I can agree with that.
I think only because it did end with Annihilation, which was objectively a terrible film, but it was terrible to the point where it was still fun to watch to make fun of it.
Right. True.
And then you get Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge too, the animated film, which honestly is the best Mortal Kombat film that's come out, and at least understood the characters' story a lot better. And then there's this new remake one, I have seen I saw the remake, and I was streaming earlier today, and I was kind of giving my 2 cents for it. And somebody did ask me the question, one of my mods, Ed, if I would rather watch this new Mortal Kombat film, or would I rather go back and watch Annihilation? And I, without question, will say I'll watch Annihilation again every single time. Because at least it was so bad I had fun with it. This was just that.
I've heard like some definite mixed things on the new Mortal Kombat movie that came out. Most of it is that it's not good. Most of it is that it's just not good. There are some individuals who are like, okay, the main thing being is, I think the only thing they got really remotely right, from what I'm hearing, is the whole Scorpion Sub-Zero thing. That's really kind of the only thing people are even touching on as far as story is concerned. Because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I still want to kind of go see it, just because I want to form my own opinion opinions on it. But generally, I've heard that the battle sequences weren't all too amazing. It just really doesn't fall heavily into what Mortal Kombat kind of is, and it falls flat. And
that's a shame because like you could, for me at least, like that's another one where like if you focused only on the combat, it would elevate the movie.
It would forgive
like
a lot of it.
Oh my god,
it's
it would
literally
be so much.
in the name. When you get a high action packed game,
like if you John Wicked it, if you forked over literally half the budget for just like CGI, make the fight scenes the most impressive to this date ever, I would be like, that was a great movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so I'll kind of draw a couple parallels for that. So I do have some issues. So in terms of the Scorpion and Sub-Zero fights, they are the absolute highlights of it. The genuine overall highlight of the new Mortal Kombat film is Kano. The actor who played it had so much fun, and he was really, really good. I will say, with the exception of Cole, like the new character they created for the film, the casting overall, I think they did choose some very solid actors to be in this film. How they executed it leaves a lot.
It's one of those. They had the tools, but the direction of it, and probably the directors and maybe even the people that wrote the screenplay, probably just missed the mark on that end.
So the story for it too, like, is absolute nonsense, because even in the confines of the Mortal Kombat universe, do not follow its own logic. And even if you walk into it completely clean, know nothing about Mortal Kombat, it doesn't make sense. Like, you can even hear like Shang Tsung's overall plan. You're like, this is nonsense. Like, you just established there's rules and you're going to break them knowing there's consequences, and then he's actively doing it and there's no consequences. Like, well, then what the fuck's the point of the initial part of this then too?
What kind of Scooby-Doo bullshit is this?
Truth.
Yeah, it's I'm not somebody who can pay attention to things like cinematography or editing too much, but if I can notice something, like if I was like, wow, this is bad editing, that's how bad it is. Where I can notice like just some real weird jump cuts, and they absolutely wasted a lot of major characters. Like Goro, 100% wasted. Liu Kang, I love the guy who played him too. I thought he was great as Zack in the Power Rangers film.
Okay.
And I was like really excited that they had him on there. They were like, he has nothing to do in that film. Sonya Blade is absolutely, they absolutely should have swapped Sonya Blade and Jax with Kung Lao and Liu Kang in terms of exposition and explanation for it.
Okay.
But I think one of the biggest things is, well, there's like I have a lot of issues, but the three that stand out for me the most is the claim that like this is a hard R film and it pushes the limits of rated R. I call complete bullshit. I've seen way harder rated R films.
To be fair,
there is some gore, but it's not to the level of, say, like a Final Destination film or even like a decent Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I mean, let's think about it.
Deadpool.
We have movies. Well, the Deadpool
was way more violent.
Deadpool.
Okay, yeah, that's what I staple in, like when I think action rated R. Deadpool.
We literally live in a world where like the Evil Dead remake made it rain blood for the solid last like 10 minutes of the movie. Like there's definitely movies that have pushed way more boundaries on that end, that you if you want to be like, if you want to hit the hard rated M rating or like or R, whatever you want to, if you want to push it to the limits, you got to go really far nowadays, because there have been movies that have already tested that boundary and crossed those boundaries.
And we also have to think about like the boundaries you can cross has been changing constantly.
Agreed.
I remember watching Poltergeist as a kid, and it's a PG-13 movie. Actually, I think it's a PG movie, and the one girl in it straight up flips her mom off, and I was just like, huh, that's not allowed.
This isn't
right.
That's not okay.
Or like, in
a PG-13
face melting.
Yeah. Or even like if you just like look at the original Exorcist, right? Like the things they made that girl say for the time frame literally push boundaries on that end. Like when we're talking like, the whole like the vomit scene still to this day kind of gets me every once in a while. They definitely push boundaries, and while there are tons of films that feel like they're pushing the boundaries on that end, they've got to realize, at least nowadays, they've really kind of pushed them to the point of shock value's kind of lost its shock value, because there's so much of it out there. You know what I mean?
Very true.
There's so much of it out there. The Hills Have Eyes. The Hills Have Eyes, the first one pushed so many boundaries on that end, and the second one too. The second one was even worse as far as things went, and there was those movies definitely deserve trigger warnings at the beginning of them.
Yeah.
Like there's some movies where people will talk about like trigger warnings and everything, and I'm kind of like, I can see it, but those definitely kind of needed it.
Well, there's a movie called Green Inferno, which was legitimately a cannibal film.
Oh,
And
that's
it's intense
yes.
to
You're
watch.
right. You're right. I remember that one.
So we have films like that, and then Mortal Kombat has one scene that's fatality-ish. It's like, yeah, it's fine. It's not. It is much more gorier in the video game adaptation for it. So it's like, all right, it's still a tone down for it. So yeah, so the violence thing is definitely one aspect. It's like it's not nearly as violent as the critics are saying that it is. The story stuff, which I've already kind of covered, like without, if you guys are gonna watch it, I won't go too much into it, but it is complete nonsense, and everybody in this film is insanely stupid. Like they're making decisions that just do like a logical person or a rational person would not do. And number 3 is the character of Cole themselves. Like they. Apparently the initial idea for this film was that they wanted to have basically like an entry point character who's going to like learn about the lore. And in the original Mortal Kombat film, they had Liu Kang, where Raiden was kind of explaining the whole point of this too, and there was and Shang Tsung collectively kind of tag team explaining the point of the tournaments. And this one you have Cole, which they want to create because they did not want to have like a Johnny Cage as being the protagonist, because they didn't want to have basically like a white savior in a kung fu film. Which in that case you have Kung Lao, you have Liu Kang. You have Melina, Katana. You have a lot of diverse characters you can use to have it be Raiden be this, and have him be the Elder God trying to recruit, and just kind of see him like building his own army too. Yeah. Do something radical with it. Don't create a new character who has no personality, who doesn't know how to act, who could definitely fight, but that's
all he's got going for him.
So, honestly, when I think like forefront of Mortal Kombat, Liu Kang is really the one that kind of puts up in the front of it. Like it is literally the one in the front of my brain. Like that's the one that I see as like the titular character. I don't know what it is about him, but it's just literally like if I were to see a Mortal Kombat film, I generally expect it to be from the vantage point of Liu Kang. And then when it's not, I'm just kind of like, okay, bold move, bold move, but okay.
Sorry, I can only think about Scorpion. I don't know if you can tell.
Scorpion's great. I love Scorpion. I love Sub-Zero, but they don't scream like titular character to me. Like
get over here. I thought you were about to say titular lines. I was like, get over here is like iconic, dude.
100%.
You can do, but then you're gonna have to start going into much more into the deeper lore. Because if you do like Scorpion, then you're getting Scorpion's Revenge, where you get into Quan Chi. You're getting more into the necromancy stuff for it, which it could still work. I'm not dissuading that you can't. But also you're getting much deeper into it. And so Liu Kang is, I think, the safest bet for it. But if you don't want to go Liu Kang because the initial 1990s film did that, then go Kung Lao instead. Do Shaolin monks.
The Kung Lao. Or you're right. Like Raiden really is another one that just screams like this character would be
through his eyes, character. And then as he's recruiting, you can sprinkle in all that backstory you need because he's recruiting.
Right. And and you can still even have the same basic premise for it too, because in the film it is like that Shang Tsung is basically trying to subvert the rules. Like it can still be from Raiden's perspective of him going to the Elder God saying like he's clearly cheating, we need to interfere, and they're like, well, the technicality, like they have not violated the direct rules. He's like, fuck you guys are not paying attention to this, then you're using these archaic laws that don't make sense anymore now. And then he decides to like say like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go do my own thing now too, and skirt the line too with doing the act of recruiting. But but instead, we have tattoos.
I really
if you have a dragon tattoo, you get to fight.
Yes.
I
really like the idea of like all of the like the rules lawyers of the Elder Gods or whatever being like, well, like they're just a bunch of nerds with like heavy glasses. Well, actually, he hasn't technically done anything wrong. It's like, all right, we
didn't write this in the rule book.
Or like very heavy like lawyer types in like suits and everything.
So like that would at least kind of give like Raiden a little more depth for it too, and later on, especially in like later Mortal Kombat games where he does start to like go evil too, like it does kind of give him like the starting point for it too. Like he doesn't agree with the Elder Gods and how they're handling the tournaments anymore now too, or even the idea of even having the tournaments existing period now too, that it's an archaic rule. And they decide like, well, fuck it, if Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn are stacking the deck, fuck it, so am I. They didn't do anything. They went so stupid with it, and everybody, like I said, I'm very much up for debate after you guys see it, but everybody who makes a decision in this film makes the dumbest possible decision, and it's just honestly, so.
I may have to go check it out just so then we can kind of talk about it on the podcast. Like maybe like we have plans for next week, but maybe the week after I could definitely
rip it apart.
And just kind of like delve into it and break down what we thought was good and what we thought wasn't, which I imagine is going to be more skewed towards the latter than the former. Yeah.
One that kind of like found like it's kind of transitions to another example. A video game adaptation nobody ever really talks about, but at least with Mortal Kombat, like one of the biggest defending comments is they don't take the franchise seriously. They're just having fun with it. They're being silly with it, which I disagree. Like, no, I think they took it way too seriously, and just with the exception of Kano, and I think we have a director who didn't know what he was doing. But my counterpoint of a film with a very silly premise, but I think still did it right. Rampage.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I can get
Nobody
behind
talks
that
about
one.
Rampage.
Rampage
That
was
movie was fun.
But that's
it
the
was
thing.
so fun.
I feel like the reason why nobody talks about it is because generally when it comes to video game movies, it's only talked about when it's terrible.
Yeah,
right. Like when it's not good, and it's because people just like to rag on it.
If you don't do bad, like if you don't do bad as a video game movie, then you are officially a movie. You know, it's just another movie.
Yep, and generally, like most of it comes down to, yeah, it was a good movie, and that was pretty much it. Like nobody, like I, especially when it comes to video game films, I feel like a lot of them, they when they're good, they're not like so good that the general public has to talk about it. I think it's like within the video game community, we're just like, yeah, we enjoyed that movie. Like generally, it was good. We really enjoyed like how they handled it all. Whereas like when it's terrible, the only reason it rises up in the ranks is because the fans really throw a fit about it.
Yeah, really pissed.
You know,
Spirits within.
We have loud voices.
Yes, we do. We are very angry and we are open about it.
Oh my God, we're so open
and we
about
will
it.
tell you on Twitter until you change how Sonic's eyes look.
Have you seen League of Legends? That's just all it is.
Oh, okay. I really wish League of Legends would at least make a show. And I know, aren't they doing an anime at some point? Because like at least have you seen like their cinematics are great. I love their cinematics. I love the kind of the lore they have in those cinematics. Like the whole thing. Who was it? I think he was the guy you played. Had a whole cinematic where he went into like this like a demon realm kind of place. And was it Yoni?
Yone. I think.
Yeah. Literally, such a cool thing. I loved watching it. I can't get back into the League. I can't do it. Like it's just not my thing. But I would so be down to watch something involving League as far as a TV show or movie or Netflix adaptation that's done at least the way that they kind of set things up.
We are forgetting another pivotal one. Not a movie so much, but The Witcher. The Witcher Netflix series was amazing.
I actually will say The Witcher is a book adaptation because they're going off the novels.
That's right. They are going off the novels, but it still has a lot of their traffic came from individuals that haven't read the books but really enjoyed playing like The Witcher 3. I can't even say The Witcher is a series because most individuals that I know have really just played Witcher 3.
I'm one of them.
The Witcher and The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece. It's like there's a reason why not only did it win Game of the Year, but its DLC won Game of the Year. Like literally just an amazing game. And
so
honestly,
perfect.
I watched the I watched the Witcher show, and when even getting into it, not like realizing this is not based off of the game, I still had an amazing time. It was so well done.
It was really good.
Oh my God. The fighting was choreographed really well.
Very well.
I felt like the atmosphere in the game hit the whole Witcher atmosphere just like dead on. The whole time skipping thing they did was so cool.
I do not get tripped up.
The books jump.
Oh, they do?
I
might have to start reading again.
Literally,
I might have to learn.
But that's the thing. It's done so well where you don't realize until towards the end that it is skipping. And
I was going to say, I am very perceptive. I don't get surprised at a lot of movies, which is very unfortunate. But that shocked me because I didn't realize what was going on. I was just watching and continuing to watch. And then I started realizing slowly, and by like a little bit after halfway, I was like, oh my God, this is so well done.
Yeah. It's
the first season is the first two books, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny.
They're continuing on with the second season, right? If I remember correctly.
They finished
They
wrapping.
just
finished
wrapping.
wrapping.
Okay, cool. Like I just honestly, aside from the memeability of him literally just looking at the ground and going fuck. Like it's just done super well. I love the Bard. I love like just all of them. Henry Cavill did an amazing job.
I was trying to think of his name.
And he's a fan too.
Yeah, and he's a fan. That's another thing. If you're gonna get someone to play a part, get a fan. They're gonna be passionate about their role. They're gonna do an amazing job.
Yeah,
like
Henry Cavill, a perfect. And I didn't even think like he was not the first person I thought to play. Hey, that's Geralt. No. But he played such a good Geralt.
Oh my God,
he did a great job with it too.
Yeah.
So, and actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm actually even wearing this T-shirt too, because like when I think of video game adaptations, the absolute best is Castlevania.
Yes.
Like, it's
Yeah,
not
hands down.
game to film, it's game to TV series,
TV
but
series.
they've done it. Every season has gotten better. The last season I thought was absolutely a masterpiece.
I thought it was
I'm
great,
so
yes.
excited and sad that season 4 is going to be ending, the last one.
Literally for weeks upon end, I would show up at college with these guys. I'd pull Netflix up on the big TV screens, and I would
just
play
watch.
Castlevania.
We would start, and then
over
we
over
stopped
again.
doing that, and we played
play
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. But
And that was funny on its own end.
Yeah, that was funny on its own end. But we watched Castlevania like a good couple weeks in a row because new people would come in, and I would be like, all right, cool, we're starting over again from the beginning because I'm gonna make you all watch this because it's amazing. And the second season, you're right, super great. I love the third season. I'm pretty sure it's the third season when it opens up with Alucard sitting in the like in his house, and he just goes like, fuck, I'm bored. And I'm just like, damn.
I'm going crazy. I'm going insane, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Sure
going
that's the
insane.
second. Isn't that the second?
No. The second one takes
Season 3, episode 1.
That's season 3, episode
Right.
1. Because
All right.
second,
The second one is when?
Because remember,
when does that
second
start?
season takes place where they're still fighting Dracula.
Yes.
We don't want to do spoilers.
Right.
But the point being is they're still within the thick of fighting Dracula. Because remember, first season was only a few episodes long.
That's
It was
why.
super short.
It was 4 episodes long, and I tie the first and second together because
I got so angry when I was watching it with my friend for the first time. I was like, this is so great. And we got to the end of the 4th episode, and it just clicks on over to the trailer instead. And I just go, that can't be it, right? That can't be it. And I go back and I looks at it, and it goes like, yes, 4 episodes. And I go, there's got to be more. And I look it up and they say the full series got released, and I was just like, how can you only give me four episodes of this?
Yeah.
How?
The
And I
first season should have
understand
just
it.
been a movie.
But
It should have
here's
just been a
the
long
thing.
movie.
I understand it. They went on the idea that video game adaptations never do well.
and that did so well.
So well.
The
And they
third
also they had a
season.
good head too. Yeah. Ari Shankar just absolutely like because he does the one thing where I think no one has actually been able to, I think, get 100% correct, which was you take an existing license, you expand on the story, you give the characters more depth and more relatability in relation to the character that already exists, which they
Right.
absolutely did that with Alucard, with Silpha, with Belmont,
Oh
with
my God,
Dracula. They made
Silpha.
Dracula so fucking interesting.
Oh
That's
my
the
God.
best Dracula I've ever seen. Where you relate to him and you feel sorry for him, and
Like,
From
I
the first
understand.
episode on, I was just like,
I saw
I
this
don't know if I
happen.
can
I
be
saw-
on his like on anyone else's side outside of like, 'cause if that was me as Dracula, I think I would have lost. it.
Absolutely.
Everyone
Like
does that, yeah.
you're an all-powerful god, and like this happens. No spoilers, of course.
and you tone it down. But no, like
Yeah.
the first episode is one of the best. Like it was such a bold move to have Dracula be the lead character in the first episode.
Yes.
Like you don't see Belmont until the very end, the last like 10 seconds, where he's like, "Shit."
Yeah,
That's it.
I
That's his first
love
line.
Oh, fuck you.
It's so good. That was my favorite. Was like, oh my god, I love Trevor Belmont is honestly like one of my favorite animated characters like to date, just because the way he is.
Yeah. So much fun.
He's such a fun
Richard Armitage
character.
did a great job with it.
Oh my god. From the moment he spoke in the first episode at the end all the way up until the last episode, I've just been in love with him as a character.
You've always liked those types of characters. You really
So
liked
good.
Who's the guy? The guy from Tangled.
From Tangled. Flynn Rider. I freaking love Flynn Rider.
The,
I love Flynn Rider.
Down on his luck, roguish.
Yes, they're literally like my favorite types of tropes, and they're just such great characters because they're so laid back and they're so raw as a character because they've reached the point of like, fuck it, I'm just gonna be me.
Yes.
You know, and there's nothing more like just gravitating and pull and like will pull you towards a person than someone who is just raw being themselves. Like, oh my god, I love the dynamic between him and is it Silva?
Silpha.
Yeah, Silpha.
Yeah.
Like literally him and her have such an amazing dynamic. I love, oh my god, when it's him and Alucard
The
sitting
trio
there
all together, it's like
when-
cats and
Yes,
dogs,
fuck
and
you,
it's
no.
like, what the fuck is going on?
But when
Like, stop
she's
it.
like, the first time they're all together, right? When she's just like, I need you two to behave, and she walks off, and he just goes like, eat shit. And it's like, I was
You're
like, oh
yes,
my
fuck you.
god, I
And then they
love
start
it.
laughing too. Like that's the thing. Like they took existing characters, they expanded on them in a way that made complete sense, and they also are telling a familiar story in a new way with some twists to it too. Like they're introducing stuff from, with Isaac and
What's
Hector as well
Isaac and
too.
Hector.
So
Hector.
they're mixing around like the what was it, like something of darkness?
Yes.
Yes.
Curse of Darkness.
Curse of Darkness, yeah.
Curse of
So they're
Darkness.
introducing the idea of the Devil Forgers too.
Yep.
So they're doing a lot of stuff, and I think that there's in the first or it was the second season they show a picture of Gabriel Belmont too. Or
Yep.
not Gabriel, Christian Belmont.
Oh, Christian?
From Lament of Innocence.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're okay.
So they are doing the right things where they're doing just enough of an homage to stuff too, and there's a lot of Easter eggs in there too, but it doesn't detract from the story. And kind of go back to Mortal Kombat, that's where they fucked up. Where it's a lot of Easter eggs. You're gonna see it's almost like it's just to see like the Easter eggs are like right in front of you the entire time. Where Castlevania, I think, did a lot more of a subtle job with it. And they did the soundtrack. I think they took tracks from the games and remixed them in a beautiful way for it too.
Very lovely.
They just gave everyone real depth and real repercussions for their actions too.
And they're so relatable.
Good.
They're so relatable as characters. It's
Agreed.
like you don't go through an entire one of those without being like, I know a person like this. I've seen this or something along the lines.
When
like
the
Isaac from Castlevania, like that episode where Isaac talks to one of his forges. And they just had like, tell me about your life, and just having a long it's just, there's no action. It's just the two of them talking, and you're like, damn,
this is so deep, like raw.
Yeah.
Literally one of my favorite moments from at least I'm pretty sure it was in the first season, was when you had the Bishop of Gresham, right, inside the church, and the things and the like.
Spoiler alerts for when did this come out?
Spoiler alerts for like
5-year-old show. Yeah.
When the demons start entering the chapel and he's just like sitting there like still, and you see him slowly crumbling. You see his like deliverance coming out on a silver platter, and it feels so fluid and just so
like he's
satisfying.
This is so perfect.
It's so satisfying because like while it would have been satisfying seeing him get beaten down by Trevor Belmont or like whatever, it just felt so poetic that it was just this no-named like random monster that just made its way into the building and just tore him to shreds.
And it was first was telling like too that God abandoned him too.
Yes,
right.
That was
the good part, where it's like, you're not allowed in this Church of God or whatever, and then it's like God abandoned you
a long time ago.
Bam.
And he goes like, you did this to yourself.
Give you a kiss. And it's like,
oh my God,
it's such a poetic just thing to show, like, because this kind of go into, I think, into another topic, I think for a much later podcast, of the idea of like video games and their commentary on religion for it, because Final Fantasy definitely has a lot of comments on religion. But Castlevania says it right to your fucking face.
Yes, it does.
Just about the hypocrisy of organized religion. It's like, God damn, that's a bold move.
Within the first episode, they already have thrown them under the bus. Yeah,
it does not.
Yeah.
They threw them right under the bus, and then everything from the first episode on was literally them being like, "This is what happens when you step up to the plate, and you don't realize what you're fucking with." Like,
one of my favorite characters, we can get back to what you were saying. But like, one of my favorite characters from all of it was, he was such a small character, but the from season 3, the captain, the captain was just so well written and like well done, where it's just like, you could kill me right now, but then what are you gonna do with this fucking boat and like all this? He essentially took Isaac, who is not a dumb person, he's a very smart, very wise man, and immediately like read him and just checkmated him and continued to read him the entire way.
I think he was an awesome character. Who else? There was the town, like the captain. I don't know if he was like the captain of the guard or like the mayor, but the person from the town that Trevor and Silva went to later on, where they ended up finding the church.
Who had his own?
Yes, who had his own like
his weird like murder dungeon.
Yes.
Oh, did you finish?
Yes.
You did finish?
Yes,
okay,
I did.
I didn't know how far he was.
No,
but
I
yeah. The guy who killed children.
Yeah,
he was
really
cool,
fucked.
wasn't he?
Like really fucked. But no, just how well written these characters.
Oh my God! And it's like, you know that this guy is not a good guy, but you can never read him perfectly. And then when you figure it out, when they reveal it, it's just like, wow. Who was really doing the wrong thing here? Like, who was the bad guy?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it was a good moment also for Silva too, because at this point she's really kind of also been having fun with everything too.
Yeah,
like like this adventuring thing is so much fun, and it's been great, and I'm loving all this. And then she sees that, it's like, this is the other side of the coin. Like, you do see the absolute depravity of humanity for it too. And you have to live with that too, which is also, it does explain Trevor's jadedness too, and why he's why he's a drunk, why he just doesn't really give a shit, because yes, he's defended like Wallachia for so long, but it also cost him his home, his title, his everything.
All of them were exiled. Like,
he has seen the dark side of humanity, whereas like with the speakers, they are in and of themselves kind of sheltered.
They have seen the dark side because they're also like pushed away and kind of exiled. But like,
but they shelter themselves from the.
They have that kind of close-knit family where he's just alone.
But that's the thing. He's become jaded to it, whereas they have decided to look past it and see the good in individuals, which in a sense does not prepare them for moments like in the first season where the town is ready to murder all of them. Yeah. And they're sitting there going like, we're still going to be here. And it's like, you will literally die. Trevor knows this. Trevor knew this before they said they were going to do it. And now he has confirmation that they're going to do it. And Trevor's like, humanity is disgusting. I protect them, but they're still disgusting. And like, whereas I've seen terrible things from these monsters, I've seen the bottomless pits of depravity from humanity in and of itself. Yeah. You know, I've seen them turn on the individuals who protect them. I've seen them shun the warnings and literally dig themselves deeper and deeper holes. That is the whole purpose of season 1, is to show how these kinds of decisions have affected him and how low humanity can get as far as all of it's concerned. Because everything from the series literally wouldn't have happened if they just let the woman be, like, you know, at the beginning.
Let science happen.
Don't immediately result to killing.
That was a big one. Yeah.
Like, it was just like, you're a witch. We'll kill you in like 2 seconds.
And they're hubris, because like he even gave them the chance. Yeah. He told them, clear out, remove yourselves from this area, and remove yourselves from my sight, and I literally won't do anything.
Anyone who doesn't want to be a part of this will not have to deal with this. Anyone who is left in Wallachia in a year, I'm gonna fucking murder you.
Yeah.
And he, to the best of his ability, kept his promise.
He still had the attachment of everything with his wife. Like, he still had the attachment. He understood. He did it solely because of her. That's really what it boiled down to. Yes. He even essentially marked that out when a year passes by later, and he just has that whole moment in his like castle before Deus Ex Machina character shows up, and then everything progresses from there. Like I said, I'm trying to avoid as many spoilers as I possibly can. But regardless, like the fact of the matter is that it's written ridiculously well, and the way that the characters are knit together is just.
It's perfect, and again, this goes back to, you have a creator who understands the material for it and who does what I think does an adaptation right. And I think that's been the one of the most frustrating things usually with the gaming industry, gaming to film adaptations I've ever seen, has been they don't understand the point. Like, I see that with Mortal Kombat. Sonic, as much as I do think is a good film, I don't think it's a great adaptation, because again, they didn't really, like, that is not a Sonic the Hedgehog story that was expanded on it. They went cheap, because if you want to do Green Hill Zone for an hour and a half, that's going to cost a lot of money for CG. So you have Sonic go to Ohio instead, where it's super cheap, and you have him go on a road trip and do silly stuff. And it's cheaper just to animate Sonic in front of at a bar versus having Sonic running all the time through Green Hill Zones and through all the worlds in that universe. Especially
at the level of animation that they were trying to go for. You know, like with the way that, like, honestly, after they fixed Sonic and his terrible teeth and tiny beady eyes, and they made him look like Sonic.
Yes,
I thought he looked phenomenal. Like, that was the Sonic I felt like we should all have. Like, if you're gonna do an animated Sonic that's not gonna be literally short, round body with big, round head, then that was literally spot on.
They got it right.
Definitely worth it on that end for them to redo the whole thing. And honestly, the fact that it was Sony, right, that did that one, the fact that, or what was it, Sony that did Sonic?
I think it was Paramount.
I'm pretty sure
it was either Paramount or Warner Bros.
Regardless, whichever company decided to sit back, listen to feedback, and completely overhaul the rest of that movie, they made the right choice. They made the right choice. They heard what was going on with their community. They knew where their money was going to be coming from, and them fixing it saved that film. In my opinion.
It really did. Yeah, it was Paramount Pictures for it.
Paramount Pictures. Okay.
And I think somebody had made. I actually even think it was Jim Carrey who made the argument that he was a little nervous or a little scared about the idea of the fans' reactions causing them to delay the film, redesign the characters. It's like, well, now that gives the audience a lot more power, and especially Twitter. So does that mean, like, every time we release a trailer and Twitter throws a shit fit, we have to now redo our entire movie? And that's actually when Adi Shankar even came forward and said, like, no, well, there's a huge difference here. There's difference between people just not liking a trailer and saying, like, you have absolutely shit on something we grew up with on a level that you cannot describe. Because again, that was so uncanny valley. It was so off.
Oh god, the teeth is what really got me.
Awful. And
little
and his
nubbins.
eyes, and they got so much of it wrong. Fortunately, like, yeah, you know what? They're gonna get. It was a deserved backlash. And they did the smart thing with the redesign.
It felt like a meme. Like, when I first saw the poster and I saw, like, the way that he looked, I was just kind of like, this can't be real. This is Photoshopped, right? Like, there's no way this is what they chose.
They're not
as
making
far
a
as
Sonic. Why would they make a Sonic movie?
No, but it was more or less like it looked
a
like
road that runs fast.
it looked like sad Mimi Sonic, and so I was like, someone photoshopped this. And when I actually looked into it and I saw the trailer, and I went, no, this is real. This is bad. Oh man!
And having Gangsta's Paradise in the trailer too
my
was
God.
a weird song.
So what a weird choice.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sure Coolio didn't mind because I mean that's gonna be a lot of money going his way for that song. It's a great
Hands
song
down.
too, and it was so. And just seeing like when I first remember seeing that in theaters, like I loved Dangerous Minds, and Coolio's song fits so perfectly in that film. Like I cannot see Dangerous Minds without thinking Coolio, and I can't listen to a Coolio song, which I can't think the last time I really did, without thinking of Dangerous Minds.
True. I'll give you that one.
But then I would see it in Sonic's like, no, that tone is way off. That is way off.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
So
that should have been like a fucking like a Blink-182 song should have been playing. Something like that. Like, it should have been
Yes,
like
I could have seen it.
great. That would have
like
been great.
a punk rock or punk pop song should have been playing for that. Avril Lavigne would have been a better choice.
Yeah.
Like Skater Boy would have made way more sense.
That would have been so great.
If it was Skater Boy, I wouldn't even have complained about.
I would have loved it.
I would have fucking. I would be like, I'm paying to see this movie 600 times. Like,
just for that.
nobody else plays Skater Boy anymore. I'm too embarrassed to watch it on YouTube. Let me just watch Sonic 600 times.
Can't have that on my Spotify list. All right. So just
Like
kind
that, or
of
move along from All American Rejects. Go for it.
Oh my God! All right, to kind of gravitate to a similar topic, but swapping things around a bit. So we talked about video games to movies. How about movies to
absolutely. I have a
video
prop for
games? How about movies to video? Oh, I can't wait
got
to
a
see what he brings
prop.
back.
I'm
He's got
excited.
yep, I'm excited to see what he's got going on. All right. Movies to video games. What we got coming our way? Oh, I see an Xbox.
I think it was Halo.
Was that no? Because movie to video game, man. I got
Halo's had some.
has some movies, but movie to video. Like I'm tired. What are we looking at here? Van Helsing. Yes, we did talk about this the other day,
Yeah.
didn't we? Oh
A
man.
Devil May Cry clone based off a shitty Hugh Jackman film.
Oh, Van Helsing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That one,
Yeah.
I've got that one on. Like I'll let you talk about that one first. You bring that one up because I don't have a lot of experience with the Van Helsing game actually.
I've
like,
never even seen it. I didn't know it was a movie. Or I mean, a video game. I've seen the Van Helsing movies.
Prevent Universal. So did you guys ever see the film?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So I love the concept of the film of like Van Helsing is now part of an order of holy knights who is now being basically sent as a bounty hunter, or not a bounty, but as a hunter of like the big Universal the monsters for it. Dracula has his new intentions now of trying to figure out a way to have his offspring actually survive, because since he's dead, his children are born dead and they die almost within the matter of a few minutes.
Right.
So he's figured out that if he gets Frankenstein's monster as part of the experiment, that because he is living tissue, that he can use that sort of technology to bring in concept a good idea for a film. Like you're actually mixing matching the Universal monsters in an interesting way for it. But then you actually have the execution of it, which was just a lot of hammy acting. Like Kate Beckinsale really has nothing to do with that film other than just become a damsel in distress for some reason, and
Which
is
is rough.
ridiculously hot through the entire film, which I enjoyed that part of it, but it's like you are doing nothing but just being in model poses this entire time. Like what is going?
You're here
It
for
just
fan
was-
service, is what it really boils down to,
Yeah.
and especially with with an actor like Kate Beckinsale, you're really just kind of like you're not using her to
We
her,
have Celine,
utmost.
yeah.
You're not using her to her utmost potential. Like,
Sorry, Kate.
Yes.
No, you're not.
Exactly. When
So-
you get to like Underworld, right there, that is an example of using her to her fullest. Period. But anyways, continue.
So then like when they released it as a video game, I was like, what the fuck? Okay, so I remember I was still working at EB Games when this came out. I popped it into the Xbox demo units. It's like because usually when you worked at a game store and you just didn't really want to deal with a lot of unnecessary customers, people who just kind of like just come into your store to dick around, you
Yeah.
put bad games in the demo stations. That way they're gonna look around to see that you're playing bad games, and it's like, well, can you change the game out with something else? Like, I'm sorry, they're a sponsor. We have to put their game in, which is bullshit. That's we just don't want you here.
Yeah.
Unless you're gonna buy something,
Damn.
otherwise get the fuck out.
And then it was me being a dickhead, being like, "Yeah, I'll play the game anyway." Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing. It's like, so we still have people who come in. Like, I had somebody at my store once who played start to finish Barbie's Horse Adventure from start open and close till like a few hours into it, because it's like, what else is he gonna fucking do? Get a job? But this is like the early 2000s. There was we were in the middle of a boom. We were doing fine.
Way to attack me
No, we
like
weren't.
that, man.
Why are you playing Barbie's Actually, a very good game, Barbie's Horse Adventure, or whatever. There was also like the Barbie's Pet Detective. I played that as a kid. Very good games.
Anyways, yes.
So we decided to put in Van Helsing because usually, traditionally, a lot of film to game adaptations are cheap cash-ins and cheap grab-ins. But the shocking thing with Van Helsing is that this was an extremely solid Devil May Cry clone, to the point that they had a pretty good selection of enemies that you got to encounter, like included they expanded on inside the universe where you're fighting up against like gargoyles and general monsters and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they were susceptible to unique weapons, so it actually made every weapon you got in the game useful.
Oh, that's kind of
So
cool.
you would get your crossbows, you would get stakes, you would get like little hand blade things on here, and they all and rifles and shotguns and stuff, and they all had genuine uses. So you were constantly flipping through your weapons, and they had a good quick change system for it, and it worked extraordinarily well. Like no right to be this good, to the point that I still have my copy.
Dude,
like after all this time for it, you can actually still even see the little like old school EV Games yellow sticker on the back of it.
Oh, dude, I remember those. I remember when like EV Games was still a thing at like the mall by me, and like I remember when they were starting to go out of business. I went and I grabbed as many games as I possibly could for like super cheap before because they got like eaten up essentially by GameStop, if I remember correctly, right?
Like GameStop bought them out. Yeah, because I remember that was the death of fun.
Yeah.
I could do a whole story about when GameStop bought EB Games and just the death of fun and the death of having a long-term career there.
Ah, damn! I can I can see that, man.
I know a lot of people told me a lot of stories of like how GameStop was very hire fire with how they worked. It was like, hey, you're here for like 3 months and then you're out because we don't want to like give you anything.
Pay you.
Yeah. Trying to think.
We're tired of paying for your health insurance.
Trying to think. For me, when I think of movie to game adaptations, right, I always think of the Harry Potter series, right? Because Harry Potter had so many game adaptations. They cashed in on that super hard. I'm actually super excited to see what they do with the new Harry Potter game that's coming out because it looks interesting. I don't know how it's gonna run, but I'm super interested about it. But my two favorites are the first games that came out for PlayStation 1, which was the Sorcerer's Stone and the Chamber of Secrets. Because honestly, if you look at it throughout, like outside of the rose-colored goggles I got, terrible game. Terrible games. They handled really awkwardly. They weren't the prettiest games. They definitely do not hold up as far as like how good they look. But as far as during the time frame of getting to play them, I enjoyed them quite a bit. The platforming was good enough. The story was there. They stuck very heavily to the story while adding in a couple of things here and there. The whole collecting the Birdie Bot's favorite beans throughout it all was tons of fun. The cards that you would find as well too. The mini games, super, like tons of fun. Trying to figure out how to make the Polyjuice potion in the second game and having to catch a goddamn like peacock thing while running around in a storeroom full of boxes was the most infuriating thing I've ever dealt with in my entire life, but tons of fun in the midst of doing it. It was, oh my god.
The only to touch on that, the only Harry Potter game that I remember playing at all, I think it was for like either the Game Boy or like one of those handhelds.
Game Boy Advance,
probably, honestly. I was playing it and I didn't know if it was in my mind there was an era of video games where it's like we didn't have enough space to explain what you're supposed to do or how you're supposed to do it, so we're just not going to tell you how to do it. That could have been my mind, because honestly it could have been that, or it could have been just dumb old Scorpio not reading stuff.
I can get that. For me, it was like, I'm trying to think. For me, it definitely kind of came down to like, I played some of the handheld ones too. Like, I love the Chamber of Secrets on handheld more than I like it on PlayStation. Like, I feel like it just handled a lot better. The mini games were a lot more fun. Like, hands down was a better game adaptation in my opinion. But they cashed in on so many different things. I remember, I think I had Harry Potter Quidditch for the PC, and I mean like when you still had to have CDs in order to play them on the PC. I mean, like, they still do put physical copies out for some games and whatnot, but like generally nobody uses them. I'm talking when you had to have it on a CD.
Yeah, my dad had a like, it's a box. It's still in there. It's South Park Chef's Love Shack. And
Oh,
it was
remember that game.
It
Yeah.
was essentially just a
Yeah.
bunch of like mini games, and for a while it was just sitting in my room for whatever reason.
Oh,
And I never played it or anything, but it was sitting there, and I looked at it every day, and I was like, this is so weird, because like,
oh my god.
now I live with the realization of like the current South Park games, which are so different.
Okay, South Park. Let's do that one. Actually,
Okay.
let's actually
rip that
open that
Band-Aid
game. Okay,
off.
all right. For starters, the first South Park game I ever had experience with was on the Nintendo 64.
I had that one too.
Which is literally,
Activision had that one.
oh my god, no point to the game whatsoever. Pick up snowballs, hit turkeys. that was it. There was no story behind it.
That was a lot of
Nothing.
video games back then.
But it was like literally in the sea of okay. So the thing being is that you had this game that was surrounded by stuff like Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
You had like the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. You had games that were starting to develop the ability to have story. Tomb Raider. Like we're talking the era in which games were really transforming from just a game with no story and a simple like idea to a game that needed story and was going to grow. Like you had things like role-playing games from the NES on that had more story and whatnot. Of course, we had the Final Fantasy series, which started on the NES and had games with tons of rich lore and story on the Super Nintendo and forward. But when you break it down, not many games outside of that genre really hit that sweet spot.
Yeah.
As far as things were concerned, they were a lot more simplistic, and they kind of like, even if you look at games like Mega Man, which was like, you're a robot, you're fighting other robots, you take their powers, and you kill the big bad robot, or you beat the scientist. Literally,
Point B side scroller.
exactly.
Mega
Gameplay was
Man.
king.
Yep.
Yes.
Mario, like,
literally
all of those.
You had this cultivation.
And when I was like very young, that was starting out in the generation of like, this is where story starts to become a thing. Like, hey, we can afford a story.
Well, you had this cultivation of essentially right around the N64 and PlayStation 1 era of, we can do more with these games. If we do what we were doing on the SNES back and actually add in story,
Right.
we'll have a one up on the majority of games from the SNES back. Like, that was their way of getting the one up. You had these game companies that were coming out, like a good example, you had like Spyro, right, which could have just been Purple Dragon
Goes
jump,
around, collect
blow things up with fire.
blow things up with fire,
That's
collect other dragons.
Yes.
And every so often he skateboards.
Right. But they went in and they actually added in a joined in story that kind of brought you from point A to point B. They were like, here's the reason you're here. You slowly learn more about characters throughout the series, and then you get to the end, and they even past the first game, they actually had reoccurring characters.
Yes.
You know, they actually made them more like conjoined games. You had the Ocarina of Time, which was like, you know, I mean, granted, of course, on the SNES you had some really solid story driven like Legend of Zelda games. Don't get me wrong on that end. Link to the Past, dude. That game is like, honestly, probably one of my favorite Legend of Zelda games. Like,
Yeah, it is
easily,
my favorite, hands
easily. But like with the Ocarina of Time, you had this, like, I don't know, something felt different. I mean, obviously it felt different because of the whole 3D thing, the 3D aspect, like really brought it to a new level. But it just added into this whole thing where even though games were starting to look prettier and prettier, and you could get away with it just looking prettier, there had to be a story behind it. There had to be something that pulled people in and kept people there, and it was a story. So when you had this South Park game that was kind of there, and people expected like maybe a troll around the town, or, you know, deal with like the you know, the South Park gang and whatnot,
The characters and like,
right,
all these colorful
you
people,
were ready
characters.
for this. And then when you get in and it's literally just a snowball fight where you're not really even fighting many people, you're just literally hitting turkeys and there's no end to the game in sight. It's just that, literally that. It was kind of a letdown.
The ending to that game was awful too, because there by the end you're actually going up against a giant robot thing, and once you actually beat it, it just cuts to a scene where Cartman is playing with a couple of his toys. Credits. That's it.
Yep.
It was just like a bullshit little Easter egg thing, and
That's crazy.
It was
Are you trying to tell me that the zombies ending, the like original or like the second series zombies ending for Call of Duty ripped off that game? Where it's like, oh, the zombies were just playing with toys, and now it's your turn to turn the story.
Literally, it didn't sit well. And then they came out with the stick of truth.
Yes.
Which I love.
was so good. And then the Fractured But Whole, first off, amazing marketing on that one. Hilarious
Absolutely.
title. Hilarious title. So good. But the games themselves, especially for the style of game that they were going for, was super well done. I love how they
shockingly so.
they did not just ride on it being a South Park game. They actually had it good gameplay mechanics. They did a really well thought out, super fun story, kind of based off of the whole Lord of the Rings game, like, you know, episodes that they had. Like, it was super fun, super cool. And then when they did the Fractured But Whole and they brought in the whole superhero thing, it just was done really, really well. And that's what I wanted from a South Park game.
Yes, and it has that like punch you in the face comedy style. Like nobody is safe.
Oh my God! Like when you go, what was it? I think it's the second one where you can fight Morgan Freeman.
I was just about to say, yes, it is.
You can fight Morgan
So
Freeman, Man Bear Pig is there.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
Morgan Freeman was literally like the secret boss you were always hoping for.
One of the little touches that I thought was hilarious. Diabetic rage being the superpower for that one kid.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
God.
I was laughing so hard.
They definitely hit the mark on that end. They were ready to put out a real South Park game where they don't pull punches on the jokes. They rag on everyone and everything, and they put
safe.
They put it in such a good, like, it was like this. Yeah, it's such a good package. The whole like turn-based, but still kind of like it was really well done. I give that game an A+ for what it did. Do I think it's the best game ever? No. But I think that for a South Park game, they did well over my expectations.
Exactly what I would hope for from a South Park game.
Yes.
Yeah. Stick of Truth was my game of the year when it came out. Like, I loved it. Just even hearing like when like Cartman just going, motherfucker, like that delivery was so
or like
perfect.
the toilets, you had to go and shit in every single toilet,
God.
and it's like you unlock stuff because of it.
Yep.
In the second one, there was in the hall of like secret friends or whatever it was that you go into the basement, and there's that item where it's like the cube of the universe or something like that, and it's like don't touch it, and you can like keep touching it, and you keep rocking it, and you keep rocking it, and then it falls off and the entire universe collapses inwards.
Oh my God.
And then it's just a game over screen.
It's so good. Like, really, they just do an amazing. That right there is what I would consider an A tier like movie / TV show into a game adaptation, where you stick it doesn't have to be exactly carbon copy A to B.
Yeah.
But you keep the spirit of it, and you keep the idea and the general story and atmosphere. That if you can encapsulate that in the game, I think you've honestly done the best you could possibly do. Without literally ripping A to B. And honestly, ripping A to B just kind of feels like a rip off. You know?
Yeah.
It feels cheap. It feels cheap.
One of the weird examples of that was, as odd as this is, was Street Fighter the movie then getting its game on the PS1. So you have Street Fighter the movie, the game, where you have such a weird bullshit Street Fighter game, but you have like Jean-Claude Van Damme, you have Raul Julia, whose face is completely covered up because, you know, he didn't do mocap for that because rest in peace.
Oh, man.
And you had just such a bullshit Street Fighter game because they wanted to adapt the film for it too and make some money off of it too, which I still stand by. Like, the Street Fighter film is one of those so bad it's good, because Raul Julia is a goddamn treasure, and the fact that he has so much fun with it, like, he saves that film, he carries that entire film on his back. And
sometimes you
then
get
when they turn into a film, it's like, or a game, it's like, fuck.
Sometimes you get an individual who's so passionate about it that they just make it work.
One person can absolutely carry a movie.
Oh yeah,
You can see that he's carrying, or she is carrying that movie. But
it sure as fuck wasn't Jean-Claude Van Damme, because that dude was high as fuck.
Oh, that was during the time when they were throwing when they were showing wow words apparently. When they were throwing Van Damme into everything. Like, literally, it's like action film Van Damme. You know, if it has any kind of fight scenes or any kind of like weird segments that involve needing to do the splits, Van Damme. Like here we go.
Dennis
we got
Rodman
him in
wants
there.
to do a film. Get Van Damme.
Yep, get Van Damme. We got this. I know exactly who we're going to. You were. It was definitely one of those eras where like they were just shoving people in there. Like, I mean, honestly, I like to say all the time that we live in a current era where they just like to fill slots with big names, but they've always done that.
Oh, absolutely.
They've always done that. They always try to capitalize on somebody with a big name and kind of. I mean,
how many movies was Clint Eastwood in? Like, in his life? It was like Clint Eastwood in this. Like, they would literally it wouldn't be the title of the
be
movie.
fair-
It would be Clint Eastwood. And then
to be fair, Clint Eastwood was like the spaghetti western guy.
Clint Eastwood.
And then
Put the
even
back there.
after he broke out of like spaghetti westerns, he was like still heavily. What was
He's
that one
just
that?
always spaghetti
Oh god,
western.
what was that one that he was in like the I think it was the early 2000s where he played like this cranky old man that was that like I think.
Torino.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. I love how that's all I got to say. That's all I got to say.
The cranky old man.
Man.
Yes. Every
Clint Eastwood movie, but like
Every Clint Eastwood movie since In the Line of Fire. Yeah.
facts. Like I honestly man, I totally we totally derailed from that whole thing, but
Yeah.
like
But
yes, South Park just does it really well, man.
Yeah. And
Anyway,
as long as
yeah,
there's
fuck Clint Eastwood. South Park.
No.
South Park did good.
but also Dirty Harry was turned into a video game on the NES too. So
True, you are right. Oh my god, I forgot about that.
we had that. Schwarzenegger had a bunch of his films like Total Recall, the Terminator 2 game, where I remember T2 because once
Terminator.
John Connor gives you the protocol to not to kill people, you had to start shooting people in the kneecaps all the time, which is so stupid.
Terminator for the Xbox frustrated me beyond all belief. Because that
The
game,
Rise of the Machines one?
yes, because that one just felt like zero direction in the game. It controlled fairly terribly, or at least from what I remember. When I have more fun playing the Nightmare Before Christmas game for Xbox than I do playing. Oh my god. Okay, first off, I love the Nightmare Before Christmas game. Listen, I love it. Objectively not a good game, but I love it. Nostalgia.
Wait,
love
pause.
it. Here we go. Yes.
There was a Nightmare Before Christmas game.
Oh my god,
Fuck
I got
yes, there
things
was.
to show
It
you.
was a sequel.
Oh my
It was
god.
a sequel game.
The Nightmare of Oogie. Oh my god. Like literally, oh my god, I have things to show you.
Like
I
you
got
saying
things to
the
show you.
Nightmare of Oogie, like I'm starting to like see possible
It's
box
rough.
art in my mind,
Okay.
and it's like
It's
ugh.
okay. It's rough, but I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
it for its. That's another movie, the video game one, where it was like it had no right being as high up on my list of favorite games, but like it's.
It was a bad
Every
game.
time you got into a fight,
But it was
this
good.
is Halloween.
Halloween.
Every single
this
time.
movie. I love
That's
this
so
soundtrack,
good.
Every single
though.
time you gotta
No,
get
that's
that
all I
fucking
want
song.
for my Nightmare Before Christmas movie. It's a
Okay.
video game.
Only reason I haven't beaten that game though is because I got all the way to the end. I got stuck on beating Oogie, and then my brother erased my save file.
Oh shit!
And I literally was like, I'm not doing this all over again. No,
my
thank you.
God.
But I want to get that again. I want to play that game on stream. That's definitely one that I will eventually get and play on stream.
We're glossing over a major
I think I know what you're gonna say.
series.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Of
MCU ones?
video games. No.
Good.
The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings has had
Two
like
Towers and
hit
Return of the King,
after
yeah.
hit.
I
for
have the
video
Two Towers
games.
somewhere around here. I love the Two Towers video game. It's one of my favorites to just kind of bust out and play. I love the leveling aspect, like leveling up your weaponry, going back and replaying as different characters. Literally one of my favorites. Going through the Battle of Rohan, and then eventually, oh my god, I say it every single time, but the Battle of Helm's Deep is literally my favorite battle sequence in cinematography. Period. Like cinema history, my favorite. I will say, in my opinion, the best battle scene in a film, especially when you pair it up next to the fact that it has the March of the Ents literally happening in tandem.
Right.
It's so freaking amazing, so goddamn good, and getting to play that in a game felt raw. I loved it.
I have
Yeah.
never seen Twin Towers.
You mean the Two Towers?
Yeah, I've never seen the Two Towers.
It's incredible. It's
So
absolutely
good.
incredible.
I'm making you
In
watch
the
it.
worst way possible, I started watching The Lord of the Rings. My friends put on the first one, and they're like, nah, we don't want to watch all of this. And then they put on the third one. So I watched the third one first, and then years later, I watched the first one.
I'm making you watch these movies. I'm making you watch the Two Towers.
So I had probably the weirdest experience. There is still a plot hole. Like I think I understand.
Like the big one.
Like Twin Towers. Sorbonne dies in that. I'm pretty sure.
Two Towers.
I will keep calling it the Twin Towers
And I will continue to correct you.
Yeah,
because you need to know. I've never seen this movie, but
yeah, it's incredible.
I
Yeah.
still
Like,
think I
have the
remember
digital
playing the
too.
game.
Oh my god. Literally, I like people can make arguments on that end as to like amazing battle sequences, and I will give them the credit on that end for what it is. But like, it's choreographed beautifully.
Yeah, Helm's Deep is perfect.
Outside of the copy paste crowds thing, once you get actually into the walls and they're actually fighting individuals, none of it's CGI. Yeah. It's all like legitimate actors. They're all fighting. It's just done so well. It's super, it keeps you on the edge the entire time. It is just beautifully done, and I will rewatch that that battle scene over and over again and get chills. The only part from the Lord of the Rings that gives me more chills than that is in the third film when you hear when you hear Pippin singing.
Yeah.
And he's literally, oh my god, that scene to this day when they're all riding out to the one like sieged town, and you see the bows getting drawn, and just the entirety of that whole moment just coalescing together into the moment when the arrows fly. It cuts out the end of the song and you know exactly what happened.
Yeah,
there is no way, literally goosebumps just thinking about it. All right.
Lord of the Rings has always been very good about that. From what I remember, this is way going back, and I was probably tired while watching this movie. But from what I remember, the Lord of the Rings was very good about just saying something without saying it all.
Yes.
It didn't word vomit it into your mouth. It didn't scene vomit it into, like, it didn't explain. It was very good at the old writer's tool of I forget the exact term for it was like the cow farm or something like that.
Okay.
Which is essentially, there was a comic, or not a comic, a cartoon, like a Saturday morning newspaper cartoon artist.
Okay. Yeah.
Who he drew this thing where it was like it was a cow, and in front of the cow, like, this was a humanized cow, so it looked kind of like it was standing on all four, or like it was standing on its
anthropomorphized.
There we go. But to this day, it is still referenced. It was a cow anthropomorphized standing in front of like an object that looked like a saw, and then as you went down the table, it was other objects that didn't look exactly like, it didn't look like it had a point,
right?
But I think it was actually called Cow's Tools, and so essentially everybody references this as like a huge thing, where it's like it built an entire universe just by showing a cow standing up and a saw. And from there it was like, all right, well, what does this next tool mean? Like, if this saw would be used like this, it doesn't say everything, it gives you everything you need in one part.
It gave you it alluded to things. It
alluded, and people still reference it to this day because it's such a powerful writing tool, arts tool, everything.
To be able to tell something, like tell a story without having to fully map it out and go over things solely through context clues is beautiful in and of itself. And the Lord of the Rings movies did a really good job of doing that, period. Like, you didn't have to really visualize all the stuff happening. Like, good example in the first film, when you come upon Gimli's family being dead in his distant family being dead in the tombs, in the mines, they didn't have to go through the whole like flashbacks and all sudden nonsense and pay a bunch of actors to do stuff. Like, they gave you the gravity of what happened, and you kind of felt and could picture what happened to them in their final moments without actually having to see it. It was done super duper well. Now, while I definitely would love to continue on with like that conversation, because I am a huge Lord of the Rings person. I feel like we could easily do an entire
podcast
on Lord of the Rings in and of itself. I was wondering if anybody in the chat really had some questions they wanted to ask. If you want to like pop any kind of questions up, we'll talk for a little bit longer. We'll kind of take some of them down, and then we'll answer them as we kind of go along. But the last movie to game adaptation that I could think of, really off the top of my head, that really stands out, because they did so many of them, and they did so many different iterations on different consoles. The Shrek series.
Yes, we were talking about this.
Yes. For multiple different reasons. Most of them were very wide misses.
Yes. Most of them were poor retelling. It felt like a Kingdom Hearts world, but a video game. It was a very bad retelling of the story of Shrek.
it ran into one of the biggest problems, which was just it was a cash grab, and that's the biggest thing you run
Absolutely.
into
It
a
was.
lot of these film to movie tie or film to game tie-ins. Like I mentioned before, all the MCU films look like cell phone games, like
Yes.
Iron Man 1 and 2. What was it? The Thor, the Dark World. All of them just look cheap and they're quick cash grabs and have no soul to them.
Right.
And the Shrek ones are a great example of that too, where it's just let's just throw like here's just a bunch of shit. Like they made like a Shrek battle royale game, if I'm not mistaken. Or,
Yes.
like
I will bring that
Okay.
up.
Yep.
That was the best Shrek game. It was so fun to play. I remember spending countless hours playing Shrek Battle Royale.
There was the Battle Royale on my end. I think one of the first Shrek games I was given any kind of draw into was when they did, oh God, it was for the Game Boy Color and it was a wrestling game. And it was literally the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my entire life. It was the side-scrolling kind of wrestling, like they tried to pull off an early WWE game using Shrek, and it was horrifyingly bad. I still don't understand what they were trying to do with it. It was rough to say the least. And then you had like the Xbox games, right? Like I think it was Shrek 2 that I played on Xbox.
Shrek 2 was a launch title for Xbox One. Yeah.
That's right.
A launch
That's right. It
title.
was a launch title. It was a launch title along
Obi-Wan
crazy.
Halo.
that. Yep, you're right. Those, and then I think what they also, I don't think it was a launch title, but they ended up also doing a package later on for that was like Jet Set Radio Future and Gran Turismo, which
Oh,
were.
no, it was Forza.
Oh,
'Cause
was it,
Gran Turismo
that's
was
right.
Sony.
That's right. That was
Yeah.
Forza. You're
I
right.
sold
Forza.
that one. I sold that collector's edition a lot.
Yeah, dude, I
Yeah.
still love Jet Set Radio Future. That's another one I'd love
It's
to talk
great.
about later
Oh,
on
it's so
down the
much
line.
fun.
That game is just beautiful. But the Shrek game, on the other hand,
They
was,
kept beating this horse. Like one of them was gonna say, like they tried the shotgun method of like, hey, if we just keep shooting out these video games,
Yes.
one of them will stick.
Something will work.
something will happen and something will work.
Apparently, it was Shrek Wrestling, like the Shrek, but it's Super Smash Bros. But
Oh my God, yeah, no, that
it's
one,
also bad.
that one was rough. The Xbox games were really rough on that end too. The Xbox games were probably the more upsetting ones on that end, because like I can understand mediums just not being like good example. Game Boy Color, didn't expect anything great coming out of a Shrek game from the Game Boy Color. There were so many games that were movies that they just did really terribly on the Game Boy Color because Game Boy Color.
Game Boy
I
Color.
digress. But like the Xbox had, oh my God, Hook, don't you? Oh my God.
SNES Hook, amazing. Game Boy Hook, fuck
Terrible.
you.
Oh my God. I think the only oh my God, the only Game Boy iteration of a game that originally had, I think it was, what was it? It was DuckTales. That one I could do. That one was fun. But otherwise, no. Yeah, it just felt like monotonous mini games.
The Game Boy Lion King was impossible.
I mean,
That was a game
All
where
of
it's
the Lion
like,
Kings were possible.
Oh my
I
God.
played on Game Gear. Fuck that game.
well, you know,
those were games that were literally like, I don't think they developed a second half of the game. So they were just like, we'll make the first part
I heard-
really impossible.
I heard that what they did was they made it that hard and that annoying to get through, because what they wanted to do is they wanted to make it so a kid couldn't play a game in one singular rental setting.
Yep,
So they would either
that's
have
what
to
I heard.
continue to rent,
That was,
or
Lion
they
King
would have to
bad.
purchase it. Lion King specifically, because Lion King had that one jump that you had to be literally pixel perfect, spot on in order to get, and it was to force parents to buy their kids the game.
And then everyone's like, why are you so good at video games nowadays? It's because we grew up with that.
Yeah.
We grew up with like
Lion King,
bullshit,
Aladdin.
like
Oh my God, Aladdin was rough.
impossible.
Up to the darkness. I was born in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking Donkey Kong.
You want
Donkey
to talk
Kong
about
something.
games that put you through the fire and the flames?
Yeah.
The CDI friggin' Legend of Zelda games.
Oh,
Oh
boy.
the CDI Legend of Zelda games were rough. Those were a whole other level of like, those were the Souls games of that generation. Okay.
Yeah, and also that like if you just play that game, you just kind of die a little inside too. 'Cause I played
the animation.
Was it the Wand of Gamera or
Oh,
Gamela? Or,
Gamelot, right?
yeah, I think it was the one to
Gamelot.
Gamelot.
The one to
I played
Gamelot.
that one at Disney World in Epcot Center because they had
Oh
like
my
a giant arcade there,
God.
and I played the shit out of that one. I was like, this is awful, but it's Zelda, so I'm legally required to like this.
I have to like it because it's got Zelda in it.
Right. It was that whole kids thing of like, this is a Zelda game, so it's perfect.
Yeah.
But what does perfect mean anymore?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
did get
kinda-
the second Legend of Zelda game, which objectively was okay. My issue with the second Zelda game was that they completely changed from the aspect and the beauty of the first Zelda game. Like literally, they found a thing that worked. It worked amazingly. They knew what they had to make tons of money off of it, and then they were like, "Let's do not that." And I was just like, "What?"
I like the Adventures of Link.
I
that one.
like it, but it definitely was not the right direction to go.
No,
like it has
I
its
will
place.
appreciate- this is kind of like our Final Fantasy VIII discussion we had last week too, where I will appreciate experimentation,
Right.
and Final Fantasy VIII is definitely an experiment. It's a failed experiment, but it is an experiment nonetheless for it. Legends of Zelda 2, Link's Away, the Adventures of Link, it was an experiment. I think 50-50 success failure, because I mean, it's just there are some parts of it that really just are pretty aggravating. But also, it was the introduction of Shadow Link. It did have some great sword combat for it, but I think
Fair enough.
there was a lot of parts that were just pretty fucked up, though.
I would always rather go to something that experimented, something that tried something new, than play Call of Duty 6 times over.
Or
FIFA 10 times over.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Well-
don't get me wrong, I loved Call of Duty. Modern Warfare 2, I grew up playing that. That was a big thing for me. And I can't stick by the exact same feel for a game.
That's the thing. I like experimentation, but I like experimentation that still gravitates towards what the original did right.
Yes.
Because the problem with just doing full-blown experimentation and trying something completely brand new is you are opening yourself up to a large pitfall. Whereas if you figure out how to change the algorithm of what you have and slowly grow it, you can make things feel really good. You know, like good example, Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. They kept the core aspect of Kingdom Hearts as far as the gameplay is concerned, right? They swapped up how fluid the gameplay feels. They changed the magic system, which is not my favorite thing, but a lot of people did enjoy it. They added in forms. They added in new aspects, the triangle commands, you know, like they added in new aspects of it that were great. And that was awesome. But we got to remember.
And they added a anti-hero, which was pretty good.
But we got to remember, Chain of Memories was the thing in between those two.
Chain of we don't remember it.
No, but here's the thing.
Chain of Memories, I remember itself.
I love Chain of Memories.
I'm a fan of that one too.
Thank you.
You got to play as Riku.
I love Chain of Memories, but I can understand where so many people got disgruntled with it. That was literally opening up what you thought was going to be like a pack of Oreos and finding out that some dipshit accidentally packed them full of oatmeal cookies. You know what I mean? I like oatmeal cookies.
Yeah,
But if I'm not
I pay for Oreos.
Exactly, I
want
paid
my
for
big chocolate.
Oreos. So like, while me on my end, if that happened to me, I would be miffed, but I would deal with it, and then I would end up enjoying it by the end of me eating all of those cookies. literally by the end of it, I would be like, that was an enjoyable experience.
Well, I bought it. I'm not gonna be happy, but I'm gonna eat them.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And by the end of it, I'm like, you know what? I do enjoy oatmeal cookies. Whatever. It's not the worst experience I've had in my life. And that was me with Chain of Memories. And I grew to love Chain of Memories after replaying it consistently. And when I found out you could play as Riku, I was like, oh my god, yes. But
Sold. Yeah.
to anybody who does not like oatmeal, like raisin cookies, and like it's not even like going into it expecting chocolate chip and getting oatmeal raisin and being like, I could understand why I mixed up these two. This is like stark. Where are my, like, you know, crunchy cookies with the creamy filling?
Yes.
What the hell is happening?
Where
And
is Milk's favorite cookie?
Exactly.
Come on.
This is not it.
I have this cup of milk. It needs its favorite cookie.
Exactly. And so there
Here's a pile of granola.
that's what I exactly. And then when they stepped back and did what they should have done, which was when they transitioned from 1 to 2 and they had this nice like slight change that added a new dynamic to the gameplay, but at the same time kept the core aspect and spirit of what a Kingdom Hearts game was and felt like is the right way of doing experimentation. Granted, it can still lead to not so amazing places, aka
You're about to say 3, aren't you?
I'm about to say Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah, we can all say.
And then I'm going to say the only issue I had with 3, because 3 still kept a lot of what I loved from 2.
Right.
I felt that it was oversaturated when it came to gameplay. That's the problem. That was an issue of there's too much of a good thing. That's when Oreo found out that people love double stuff. And we're like, here's quadruple stuff.
Here's mega
and
stuff.
It's like,
you know, like
right,
that. Like,
and
okay, well,
it's like okay, I love it.
At that point, just give me the cream.
There still has to be a ratio of cookie to cream.
Yes.
And that one was a lot of cream and not enough cookie. And like literally it came down to, they were like, people love triangle commands. Put them everywhere. And I was just like,
Yep.
okay, but I loved them. But the thing I loved about them was that they were used
Uniquely.
sparingly and uniquely to get a one-up on the situation. Not
Right.
Or it's like,
consistently.
hey, you're backed into a corner. You need to press this button to survive.
Right.
It's examples being the entire boss fight for Kingdom Hearts 2. It's like, hey, if you're not constantly mashing the triangle button,
you will die.
You will die.
But in 3, where suddenly you saw 3 or 4 triangle bars all stacked over each other, and yes, you could scroll through them. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got to pick my own thing on that end, but I felt the inherent need to use all of them.
Yeah.
I had to, but then in order to use them meant cutscenes. It meant being broken from like the gameplay in and of itself.
Right. It's very
like,
And they
distracting.
relocate to a different part of the map.
exactly. And
Oh,
and that was if when you get you'll understand when you get into it.
Okay.
Trust me.
No,
It's
I
a
don't
whole thing.
like that.
But
though.
like a good example, Kingdom Hearts 2, when they did the forms, you had a small little transformation sequence,
yes.
right?
You were magical girled for like
Right.
2 seconds.
Exactly.
Now you're powerful and your combat style is different.
Yeah, you pop right out, you go right back into it. It works. It still feels fluid, and then once it goes away, you have to wait time before you can do it again.
Yeah.
Whereas in 3, it was form into secondary form into magical teacup ride into like the carousel out of form. Into
Hey, have
new
you
form.
ever visited? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if I was playing like Kingdom Hearts 3 and they just popped up like a, hey, do you want to go to Disney Kingdoms?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sign up here.
It was like what really kind of boiled my blood on that one was the fact that they turned things like the Keyblade forms into something you had to do. Not something that felt special in a fight, not something that felt like it was going to save you. It felt like something you needed to do consistently, because if you didn't, it was going to take forever to do what you had to do. And it just really felt clunky. That was my issue. And it felt like they realized the good things that they did and they just overdid it. And I would love to see them go into the next game in the series, into 4 or whatever offshoot. And I would like to, and have learned and have pulled back a bit. Honestly,
From what I'm hearing, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the very definition of too much of a good thing.
very much so.
Yeah.
Like, very much of a good thing. There are a couple of small little things I also have issues with regarding it, but they're all minor things that don't make it a bad Kingdom Hearts game.
Right.
It's just things that I notice that I'm like, okay. And you know, Ratatouille. Okay, the side things and the selfies are things that I utterly abhorred. For me, it was like things like pacing. Good example, like if you listen to a lot of the dialogue in the game, you will notice they are very quick to talk. They
really?
speak. There are some times where it almost feels like there are responses that happen too quickly for a general normal conversation.
That is interesting considering how slow 1 and 2 are at times.
It obviously came down to the fact that very much so they went through development hell.
Right.
They completely changed engines. They revamped the whole thing. And of course, you have the entire community ripping on them for spending over a decade to finish the last installment of a series that we expected to get a long time ago. Like, the fact of the matter was I can understand how it went down that way, which is why it's less of a major problem for me and more of a, I notice it and I go, that line felt rushed. This didn't feel like as fluid and natural as some of the other dialogue from Kingdom Hearts games really felt. And I'm hoping it's just a one-off. This happened because XYZ, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're just minor issues for me. Nothing major. It just definitely felt a little off. But that's a whole thing in and of itself, and you'll probably notice that going into the game. But it doesn't make it a bad game. I love the opening. I love getting to start out in Olympus. It's super great. Hades is amazing.
Yeah, there's still a lot to like about it.
Kingdom Hearts 3 is by far not my least favorite Kingdom Hearts game.
What's your most favorite?
What's my most favorite?
Yeah.
I've already had this discussion with you.
Yeah, it's 1.
Kingdom Hearts 1 is my favorite. Only because 358 handles so terribly.
I was going to
and looks
say,
so bad.
Venisphere, what is your favorite Kingdom Hearts?
Honestly, like for me, it actually was 3. Like I know, like I acknowledge all of Roz's concerns with it too, but I actually did like the Combat 4 too. I do appreciate it on a storytelling standpoint that it is a game that does reward the fans who've been playing all 35 installments that led up to this too. And if you've been following and pay attention Square will send you a PhD in philosophy,
Right.
which I could absolutely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I also love the fact that they took everybody who was in Unchained Key. My name is somewhere in that game as my screen name, I should say, somewhere in that game. Might even be in there twice because I technically had 2 accounts. But at the end, where they kind of do an homage to all the people that played Unchained Key, you'll know when you get there. Not really gonna go boil into it on that end, but that felt nice. That felt good.
Yeah.
They are it definitely had its merits. I think 3 is definitely a good game. I will not rip on it that much and tell people to not play 3. That would be well
From what
beyond.
I've seen,
I'd be doing 3 a disservice.
It never looked like it was bad, and it certainly never looked like it was as bad as Dream Drop Distance.
It just could have been much better.
It could. It absolutely could have been. So that being said, like I'm kind of going back through my streams and playing through through the series again, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to getting back into part 2. Because I as much as I have very mixed feelings part 2 because I hated the initial prologue so very fucking much that it did kind of ruin a lot of 2 for me. But I also do remember like some very epic moments in 2 as well. Yeah. The point where like I want to be able to play that now as an adult and really kind of experiencing it again with fresh eyes and seeing like maybe it will change, maybe it does switch over to 2 then.
Literally
what they did to Setzer.
One of my favorite non-ending moments in Kingdom Hearts. When Axel freaking blew himself
Axel blows himself up.
Yeah.
That's it's so good.
It just it hits so heavily. And when he's just laying on the floor and he's talking about himself, that hit me on an emotional standpoint.
It was very Axel is such a well-written character.
Axel's an amazing character. I love him as a character. I love that he kind of continues past that point. Like they didn't just one-off him and be done with it all. Like literally, I'd have to say I do agree with you, Vanny, on that end with like the opening where like I understand what they were trying to do, but it felt so like a super long tutorial. It felt like that was the problem.
It definitely is too long, but at the same time, it does the same thing that 1 does, where it's very much that introduction into the normal world. Right. Everything is normal, everything is fine.
But that's the thing. 1 did a 2-part. Day 1, day 2, you still learn things from day 1 to day 2. You learn that you can interact with different things in the like in the environment, all this other stuff. Kingdom Hearts 2 was
7.
Once you got
several
to the
hours.
Once you got to the end of the tutorial, it continued on so much longer than that. Like you learn pretty much everything on the first like 1 to 2 days.
Yes.
That's it. And the rest of it is just this feels like a tutorial. What the hell's happening? Where's Sora? I know he's there because he was in the marketing. I know he's there because he's on the cover. I know he's like at that point you're just like, I want to get to Sora.
Well, I understand that.
Roxas is a good character.
I love Roxas as a character. I think he's
I agree.
That's the thing, like now that there's been the entire first like essentially the first saga has now completed now too. Like Ross brought up a good point the last time. Like it now makes way more sense to have Roxas' story told the way it does in respect to in the larger story. So now that I have a better understanding, thanks to Roz explaining a lot of this stuff to me, like going back in now to with the better understanding, see like, okay, do I still have the same sort of feeling for it?
Right.
There's gonna be one aspect which I mentioned earlier, like is the Setzer thing, because Setzer is my favorite Final Fantasy character outside of my Final Fantasy 14 one, and the fact that they just absolutely just fucked him up. I hate that.
They do to him what they did to Titus, Waka, and Selphie in the first game. He's there solely for tutorial aspect, and they really never expand upon them. And I very much dislike it. The most we get out of Selphie is literally later on she appears in a cutscene. And two, and that's it. And she shows up to literally just pose a question to Kairi, and that's it. Never again.
And then just fucks off.
And it's just kind of like you have these characters from the series that is amazing and has all this lore and everything behind it, and you could really capitalize on having them. Another reason I have an issue with 3. They took away my Final Fantasy characters.
They absolutely did.
I hated
really
it.
Did.
That was another thing. Yeah. That's another reason why I can't put it on my top, like and like in the top of.
Well, yes, I definitely do feel like that was Disney. Disney has always, it didn't have a chokehold on it when it was 1, and even like continuing on 2, it kind of started to like present more of a chokehold, and then it's like, wow, there's so much representation going on, like so many people like this series, we might as well put it in our pocket. And then 3 happened, so it was like very hard for them, and I wouldn't be surprised if Disney had like partial reasoning behind development hell for them.
I could get that though if they never put them in the game.
Yes.
But then they came out with Remind, and they literally stuck Sid and Yuffie and Leon and Aerith in there.
Okay.
For just a hot second.
Well, Aerith is dead, so it doesn't.
We'll slap you.
Yeah, and well, actually, and even with all that being said, for too, like, and kind of get back to the main topic that we're kind of going over. I think one of the biggest missed opportunities I think that's ever happened, like at least within gaming as overall medium, is Kingdom Hearts' lack of expansion beyond gaming and mangas for it. Like,
Yes.
there really was no
Yes.
reason why it should not have been a Disney part with Square and made a Kingdom Hearts like trilogy of films. To if nothing else, at least cover the first game or something like that. For
Yes.
it. But,
At
yeah,
least we got manga though.
And the
right?
manga are so well written. I will say,
Agreed.
my favorite game in the entire series isn't even a mainline game. It's 358 over 2.
Yeah.
358 over 2
I
is
really
my
like 358.
favorite game because of the story behind
God.
it. Because Xion is such a well-written character. Because I love Xion with like everything. Like she is so perfect, and the entire dynamic of the Sea Salt trio is like so perfect in my head. And then a while back I started reading the manga series for 358, and it only made it better.
Yep.
Like it just gave these people personalities, and it just
Like I said, 358 would probably be my favorite game of the series. If they gave it the same like retouch as they did Chain of Memories when they did Rechain, I'd probably fall in love with 358. It's got an amazing story. The ending still gives me chills to this day. But the hard stop is on the gameplay and how hard it is to look at the game when you're playing it. That's really all it is for me. And honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that it comes from a series that just has an amazing use of just like beautiful atmosphere, and like even Kingdom Hearts 1 just looked really, really nice for
It did.
that point, that time
really
in gaming. Like it just was so freaking awesome. I love it. So that's where 358 falls for me. That's why 358 honestly is my second favorite. Like if I had to do like a top 3, I'd probably do Kingdom Hearts 1, 358, Kingdom Hearts 2, and that is like just barely bumping Birth by Sleep off of the train of my top 3, because Kingdom Hearts 2 felt more fluid gameplay wise, which is a big thing for me when playing a literal hack and slash beat 'em up like RPG. I need that. Birth by Sleep did an almost as good a job for me. They changed some things which felt a little weird,
right?
But and also the fact that you have to play through the story essentially 3 times in order to get the whole thing. So that like that's another thing. I like a story that's fluid from beginning to end, so having to stop and then restart and then go and do it all over again 3 times in a row felt a little awkward on my end, but I still love Birth by Sleep.
And it didn't help that for me personally, I started with the fucking hardest character in the entire
Please tell me you started with Ventus.
I started with Ventus. And I literally slogged through it, and like most of his stuff is fine, it's easy, and then I got to the final boss and I couldn't beat
Ventus.
I couldn't beat Ventus. He was so hard. I was just like,
okay,
I'm not even playing on the hardest difficulty.
Okay, for me, I did Aqua, Vanitas, Terra, which, okay, the real way that you should be playing through those games is Terra, Ventus, Aqua. And the reason why you do that is because Terra gets to the worlds first, Ventus shows up afterwards, Aqua is the last one. Terra is the starting point of the story on each world, Ventus is the midway, we know what Terra did, now Ventus is here, and then Aqua is the end. But now hear me out, everybody, if you flip it, you start out getting to the world where everything's already gone to hell. You have no clue what Terra did. You have no clue what Ventus did while he was there. You just know everything has gone sideways and is flipped over. Then you play Ventus, which clears up a little bit of what happened in your mind. You realize what happened just before Aqua showed up. And this whole time you're sitting here going like, what the hell is Terra doing? Why is he being this way? Why is he such an idiot? And you end up like having these just thoughts about him throughout playing it all. And then you play Terra's and you realize why those mistakes were made, what happened, and you garner this like understanding and this love for who he is, and you realize you feel sorry for him. You are empathetic towards him. So personally, my favorite way to play through the games is completely backwards,
right?
Because you're seeing the story and you're filling in the holes. It's almost like watching it all happen and then going back and getting like that recap and filling all the plots, like the plot holes up. It feels so nice to go from questioning and hating the motives for a character to suddenly understanding them and empathizing with them. You know, you don't go into a story knowing why the villain is doing all this stuff and everything. Like, could you imagine if literally the opening to Final Fantasy VI was them explaining Kefka and his reasons for why he does stuff? Instead of filling in the plot as time goes along and you learning about it. Kuja as well. Like, you know, you learn about these characters as they go through. And honestly, Terra, outside of finally figuring out the whole deal with Xehanort. I mean, we all knew Xehanort was a bad guy at that one time, but
he shows up and it's like, well, this guy doesn't look right.
Yeah, look at the eyebrows. Yeah. Clearly, he's evil.
Outside of him, Terra was kind of like the like what he was being posed at. If you started with Aqua, was the villain of this whole thing. Like every time he showed up somewhere, everything was turned
even
upside
when you were
down.
playing as like Ventus, he's still
you're
the
like
villain, but you're like, I don't want to believe it because it's a Kingdom Hearts game.
Everyone's like, Terra did this? That doesn't sound like him. Why would he be doing this? And you start to like you question because of the darkness that he kind of showed at the beginning of the Mark of Mastery, well, the end of the Mark of Mastery exams, and you're literally learning about all this stuff, and it just kind of like it feels good. It feels really good. But I don't want to turn this into a Kingdom Hearts discussion as well, because I will turn everything into
it is called Organization 2, and we did start off as a Kingdom Hearts discussion podcast.
We did.
So,
our first
it almost feels
talks,
wrong to not have at least a reference to it too. So why not have a whole segment for it?
Oh, okay, you know what? I can round this out into the actual thing. The Kingdom Hearts back cover. The like hour-long movie that they came out with for 0.2, I think was what it was.
Yes.
Or well, 2.8. 2.8, which had 0.2. A fragmentary pat is a whole thing on that end. Like their numbering system really irks me.
It is so fucking weird. Yeah.
But back cover is a really great way for people to kind of understand enough about Unchained Key, while still not like nailing you in the head with what is hours upon hours
to play a gacha.
Okay. Unchained Key is like 4 hours of cutscenes alone if you want to watch it on YouTube. Like you can, but like it's a lot to take in. There's even tons of stuff that haven't been fully expanded upon that people are expecting to happen within the next series. You're gonna go to okay, all right. Who are like a good example? There are characters that haven't even shown up again in the actual story, where they brought in Chirithy, they brought in they kind of explain the backstory of some characters from the organization as well through Unchained Key, and now we're seeing all these other characters that just disappeared, and with Chirithy coming back, it's like, where are these other people?
Yeah.
What is gonna happen with them? And now that they brought in Master Lucio, Braig, I can say that now that he's not here, and they bring in all the other masters that were there that headed the different organizations in Unchained Key. It brings this whole like it's culminating into something really great. But back cover is able to introduce you to these characters and introduce you into what's happening without you having to force yourself to play a gacha game. I respect them heavily for it on so many levels, and the movie's not that bad, especially since it's kind of just like an hour long. You know, it's like a very easy watch. The voice acting's pretty solid. It's obviously a fairly beautifully done animation. The animation style is great. I think they did it in like Unreal Engine. I don't know if they did it in Unreal Engine.
I think so, because by that point they were already ready. They were well into 3's development for it. So
it was at least stylized to look like it was done in Unreal Engine, and it was done really, really well. I enjoyed it heavily. So honestly, I definitely feel like it's worth the watch. If you haven't seen it, have you seen it?
Not yet.
Highly recommend it.
There really hasn't been a Kingdom Hearts I haven't played yet, but there's been a couple that I have not finished. So Birth by Sleep I've not finished. I know I did the main trilogy. I did Chain of Memories. I did finish Birth by Sleep. 358 358 over 2 I did finish. Did I finish Dream Drop Distance?
I wouldn't blame you if you didn't.
I got to the very end and I could not finish the final boss fight. And
understandable.
I was always like 2 hits away from because that was like the fight scene where like, he kept like zooming away from you and you had to kind of keep rushing towards him, I think. And I just couldn't finish it. I just couldn't do it. But
understandable. There no shame in that. Like Dream Drop Distance was just really hard to get into. And like I get where they had the whole flow motion thing was supposed to be cool and interesting, and the AR cards were like interesting,
It's a neat idea.
but they didn't have any support for it. Like, you weren't able to go out and find more AR cards to scan. You just like got the AR cards with the set, and that was it. Like, if you wanted to get them anywhere, you had to actually go online and try to order them, and they were not cheap.
They also didn't start with like a very up there kind of world either. They started with The World Ends With You.
Yes.
Which was something I
right.
didn't even realize was a game
Yeah.
until I played that, and then later on I think I watched The Streak on twitch.tv/the Streak.
Yeah.
I think I watched him play it, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. I was like, these characters seem interesting, but like
they're good characters. They're more Square Enix stuff that they kind of added in, but they definitely weren't necessarily needed.
I think it could have been better if they started with a more grounded, slightly well-known.
Yeah, I think it really kind of pulled away from the fact that so my biggest thing with it was more or less they kind of pulled away from what you were doing when they added in this whole game that they were playing throughout the entire thing, and it felt like you were kind of an outsider watching them do stuff while at the same time trying to fulfill your own goals throughout the game, you know.
By the way, I have just been informed that the Magic game that we were playing has just ended. It just now finished.
Okay.
And I did not win.
Oof. Oh, you know what? Fun fact. All right. Fun fact, actually, before we continue on, because we are starting to kind of hit towards the end of our time allotment as well, too. So, I have a question for you, Vanny.
Yeah.
2 slices of bread, sausage, eggs, and cheese. What do you call that?
What is the word for that?
What is the word for that? When all put together and then toasted. What would you describe? A sandwich? What kind of a sandwich?
Like if you had sausage, egg, and cheese as a sandwich.
So it wouldn't be like a McGriddle or anything like that.
Yeah,
because
like
it's not
would be
right. I would actually refer to it as just like it's like a breakfast sandwich. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we had a mutual friend who was talking to us today at dinner.
Yep.
And
he goes,
I made a grilled cheese.
A breakfast grilled cheese today.
Grilled cheese. And we looked at him and we waited for him to explain, and he continued to explain. Yeah. And we both just looked at him and went, do you mean a breakfast sandwich?
Yeah.
Like he was like, no, but like you grill up the cheese, right? You butter the outside, right? And then you put like egg and sausage and cheese on there. And we're like, yeah, a breakfast sandwich.
Go to a Sonic, they're there.
Yeah,
I was like Sonic, literally anywhere. I was like,
oh my god, it was one of the best moments I've had in a long time.
Yeah, it was like put down Texas toast, and you have like a pretty standard breakfast growing up.
Thank you. Oh my god, and I was just like, I'm sitting here going like, all right, you take 2 slices of bread and you put stuff in between them. What do you call that? And he goes, he sits there and he's looking at me and he's just like,
Morgan called me.
And I'm like, come on. And he's like, a sandwich, and I'm like, yeah.
I was like,
sandwich, yeah.
That'd be like calling I had a beef grilled cheese. You mean like a burger?
Yeah.
Like it was the same thing. Like
man, and my favorite was like
he was just so pissed at us too.
Yep.
I was like, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
You might want to go handle that.
Yeah, probably.
All right. You'll probably we may be done by the time we get back.
That's fine.
But I just wanted to say thanks for coming on in, dude. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stream, for supporting me.
Come back here.
Yeah, I'll probably.
Okay, awesome. All right. But anyways.
Yes, I'm coming back.
Okay. No.
So I do know like there were a couple of big installments too. So like I think the game to film adaptations like the Resident Evil, of course. I think that can be very much its own thing too, and the reverse of films to the game Star Wars as well too.
Yeah.
Those are already like those are already again such mixed bags for you. I do think the Resident Evil films definitely declined quite a bit for it, and the CG films can go fuck themselves.
I think they definitely declined, especially later on. I feel like they jumped the shark, essentially, is what they did.
By 3, they jumped it.
Yes, but I do think that on their own as standalones, the original ones were definitely good. Like I feel like I think they stuck close enough to the idea and the spirit of Resident Evil, that even though they went with a completely new character and they went with more of an action route instead of a survival horror route, it did really, really well. I shouldn't even say that. The first movie was definitely more survival than they were like anything else. But once they transitioned past that point and they kind of gave her like super action-y roles. Oh my god.
Powers and all that.
Oh yeah, that was a whole thing in and of itself. But I still enjoyed it. Silent Hill.
The first one I actually find as being, you know what, not the worst thing on the planet. It's not a great film, but I thought it was good.
That's another one that whenever it popped up on
that was solid too.
When it popped up
the
on
second was awful.
The second one was terrible. I can agree with you on that end. But the first one, like if it popped up on Sci-Fi, I'd watch it hands down.
I'd probably watch it. Yeah.
No issues watching it on if it popped up on Sci-Fi nowadays. Like I would easily watch it. No complaints. But at the same time, with that being factored in, it was one of those adaptations where, like, a good example, it's the same issue I had with Homecoming, right? Pyramid Head.
Yeah.
Pyramid Head was very much a James thing in Final Fantasy. I'm on Final Fantasy in the world right now. In Silent Hill 2. It was his thing. It was his manifestation of his guilt when it came to axing off his wife. And they just... I hate to say it, but they literally just pawned him off to every medium they could because he was just such an iconic character, and it felt like they were just cheap. They were cheapening what he was in the original second game. So like when you got to Homecoming and they threw in like 3 of them, and I was like,
that's like having like 3 Freddy Kruegers. Like you don't do that.
It's not your shtick. Come up with a new one. It doesn't. Yeah. I'm sorry. I just hit this thing. Like no, it kind of becomes like the Oreo thing. It is trying to do too much of a good thing, and then you kind of like ruin it at that point. Resident Evil, same thing. Like they just like 8 films, something like, or 5 or 7 films. Like no, you don't need that many for it, and they get worse. And then after you would think after like the final chapter, like maybe we're kind of done giving him Capcom film or Paul W.S. Anderson Capcom films, and then they say like, well, let's give him Monster Hunter and see how that plays out. And my god, fuck. Okay, the Monster Hunter film, when it was actually Monster Hunter, wasn't bad. When it was everything surrounding it, you could take it or leave it. You know what I mean? I can take it or leave it.
So it's the same thing. And then you get stuff like really bad ones too, like you get like the Hitman films, which are also just genuinely awful and just like very like limited action scenes for it too, and didn't understand what they were doing. And there's, I mean, this could be like a multi-podcast sort of discussion for it too. But I do think stuff like Resident Evil and like the Star Wars film to game adaptations deserve its own for it too.
Right.
Because there's so many of them, and with very good quality for it too.
Agreed. I would love to just go into like maybe adaptations off of pop culture too, because because then we can get into the topic of like Epic Mickey, which was a big one as well too, where like once again I see what they were doing and I wish they had done better with it, especially when they went to Epic Mickey 2. My god.
And also don't forget, I think the epitome of pop culture being incorporated in video games, Darkened Sky. Brought to you by Skittles.
But it's not even okay. But that's like, honestly, there are some really good ones too. Like, good example, Alice Madness, which took its own spin-off of Through the Looking Glass, and that one was phenomenal. At least the first one was.
I love the first one too. American McGee's Alice thought was excellent too. Madness Returns was also like shockingly good. A bit long, I think. I think it was a little too long, but
a bit long. Not as good as the first one, but still a really solid game.
Still good. Yeah.
Still a super solid game. But that could be definitely something we visit on another podcast. And so, speaking of which, we're kind of rounding it out on that end here. I wanted to do a couple of things on that end as far as like what we'll be doing next week. So Vanny and I were talking, and we both realized that we're both huge fans of the Final Fantasy TCG game. So next week we're going to be doing a unboxing in tandem, and then we're going to be and further on too. You've already got them, but I will pick them up. Don't you worry. I have one of them sitting in my shopping cart already. But we're going to be doing a bi-weekly Final Fantasy TCG box opening, where we'll be opening these up side by side, cracking them open, checking them out, cards that are in there, and then we're going to be taking the cards we get from the packs and building decks and playing against each other, and just kind of having talks and discussions. Like we'll do a couple of tutorials on our end here regarding the game we made, like take a little bit at the beginning of each one in case somebody's like interested in figuring out how to play the game. We'll kind of go through the motions of it, maybe play a game or two where we teach y'all how to play and teach y'all like about the different aspects of the game. But then what we'll round out with, we'll do another podcast discussion as well in tandem with it, and that one hopefully we'll be able to do a bit more of like a Q&A type thing where people want to ask us like questions or want to ask us questions about ourselves or anything like that, things you might want to know, our opinions on certain topics. We'll leave it open to questions on that end, and then we'll answer them as we're playing. Does that work for you on that end, Vanny?
Absolutely does. I'm looking forward to it. Like, it's been so long since I've actually played this game too.
Same.
And yeah, really excited. And like, it's been teasing me here, like still factory seal. Like
dude, I know this is me. Like, oh man, I like really could do it on that end. But honestly, seriously, I'm super happy we're doing this podcast thing together. I really enjoy it. It's awesome. And I'm gonna kind of round out here because there are definitely some people I want to like shout out on my end that kind of popped into chat, which, like, you know, TJ, seriously, dude, you're an awesome person. Thank you for stopping on in. Mammoth, thank you for the sub during the whole thing. Like, thank you, Fresh Macaroni, for following me as well too. Dab for the 6 gifted subs. I know I normally shout it out during, but like, you know, today was like a really crazy day on my end towards the beginning, and then the podcast, we're trying to focus a little more on kind of staying on topic with the podcast than maybe talking about it later on. We'll get like this whole thing kind of tiered out because I know this is definitely my first podcast, so I'm still getting used to it, so I definitely do rant a lot. So I'll get better with it as time goes along. But we're definitely going to try and work out something on our end where we'll be able to kind of open up questions at the end of each discussion and kind of let y'all ask whatever it is you want. But really, I appreciate you doing the podcast thing with me, Vanny. This is tons of fun. I've had tons of fun up to this point so far, and I hope to continue it on for quite some time.
That's the plan, man. That's the plan. So yeah, I have other ideas that, you know, maybe do like some joint streams and try out some multiplayer stuff too at some point, and definitely doing laying down some cards too.
Yeah, agree with you, man. We could definitely do like, you know, we could do not just a podcast but like also a vodcast as well too if we want to pick some multiplayer games, and instead of doing like just a spoken podcast where we rip the audio, we could do like just a joint stream that we maybe upload to a YouTube channel or something like that, where we can have something still kind of going out each and every week if we do find that we need to do that in some way, shape, or form. But I feel like we definitely, especially you and I, with like all the topics we could probably come up with, we've got a lot of cans of worms we could definitely open up on stream. I think we'll talk later as to what we want to do for the next one. Also, keep an eye out because we may end up moving this to another separate channel in and of itself, which we will begin to announce and shout out and let you guys know about well in advance. But we're currently waiting for some sorry about that. We're currently waiting for some information on our, I shouldn't say information, we're waiting for some art to come back from my artist to have it all ready to go, so then that way when we launch it, we're all good to go. We'll know exactly who it is that'll handle launching it. Like, I could do it if we want to on my end from my computer, or we can work that out on our end too, or we can alternate it if we would like. But regardless, we'll have our whole setup with new art and everything that is specifically geared towards the channel. We do want to get guests on here as well too, so we could maybe see about there's definitely people on my end I would be happy to reach out to. I'm certain on your end as well too. We could maybe alternate each of us inviting somebody each week, and then maybe if we catch on and get a good enough amount of traction, we could maybe even do like guests from our followers. We could do like a raffle kind of thing once every so often and bring a follower on stream to play or like do stuff. So there are new things that we can we'll definitely talk about and discuss, and we'll let you all know, and we'll keep you all apprised as the time goes along. Anything else you want to say, Vanny?
No, this is a lot of fun, and big shout out to Scorpio too for hanging out with us as well. Scorpio North.
Yep. He is now an empty seat. He's poofed into a chair, but I'm sure he'd be more than happy to come back later on for another stream later on down the line. I'll, you know, like I said, we'll discuss about guests, but we'll try to kind of have a cycle of guests coming through. I would love to see some of the people from your end coming in and talking with us as well. We could maybe not next one while we're doing the Final Fantasy one, but if you want to think of somebody for the one after that, and then we can craft a topic around that as well too. We can just kind of have fun with this all, you know?
Right on.
All right. Well, go ahead.
No, I dig it.
You dig it? All right. Well, awesome. Seriously, this was great. Thank you everybody for coming on by and hanging out. It's really awesome to get to see y'all and get to talk with some friends here on my end. So I really hope y'all have an amazing night. My name is Raziel's Flame, and I'm here with my friendo over here, Vanispheres, and we have had such an amazing time with y'all. And I hope to catch you guys next time. All right. Peace out, everybody.
Cheers.